Guxian paused, then said, "I'll go too." Since Guxian wanted to go, Zhang Zhengui and the other two naturally did not stop him. After putting the bottles of pickled vegetables back in the dormitory, the group of them headed to Hoggy's company. The summer vacation was scorching hot. The sun was high up in the sky, and just walking on the streets was enough to make one sweat. Zhang Zhengui was dying from the heat. He glanced at Yun Jian from the corner of his eye. Because he wanted to show off his abs, he had already taken off his shirt and hung it over his shoulder. Seeing that Yun Jian did not look at him, Zhang Zhengui walked over and asked Yun Jian, "Little girl, it's so hot today. Do you want to have ice cream to quench your thirst?" With that said, Zhang Zhengui did not wait for Yun Jian to answer. As usual, he ordered his roommate, Guxian, to run errands for him. "Guxian, go buy me." Just as he said this, Zhang Zhengui suddenly felt that it was embarrassing for him to order Yun Jian's brother to buy things for him in front of her. Thus, Zhang Zhengui went to buy ice cream himself. Chapter 1134. Because I don't eat ice cream from strangers. But Yun Jian didn't say the last sentence. Yun Jian can eat ice, and she has eaten a lot of snacks like ice cream. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Zhang Zhengui's hand that was about to reach out to Yun Jian obviously stopped. He just went to buy ice cream to flirt with Yun Jian. He didn't think about anything else at all. So when he heard Yun Jian's words, Zhang Zhengui's hand directly stopped. "My sister doesn't eat these things. You can keep them for yourself." Guxian resisted the urge to laugh and mock Zhang Zhengui and said seriously. In fact, Guxian knew that Yun Jian can eat ice cream. But when he thought about how Zhang Zhengui's 3 roommates usually ordered him around, and even knew that he came from a good family, they always asked him to treat them. Zhang Zhengui's 3 roommates didn't help him at all since school started, and they often ordered him to do this and that. Although Guxian didn't hear it, he was very unhappy. At this moment, seeing Yun Jian's actions and Zhang Zhengui's deflated look, Guxian simply wanted to clap his hands and cheer. Zhang Zhengui heard Guxian's words and wanted to flare up, but when he thought about how Yun Jian was in front of him, he held back. "Hey, since little sister doesn't like it, then I'll eat it." In order to please Yun Jian, Zhang Zhengui only bought 1 ice cream. When he heard Yun Jian say that she didn't want to eat it, Zhang Zhengui ate it himself. The few of them walked together and arrived at the entrance of Hoggy Company. Hoggy Company, like Rongyao Company, was headquartered in Maryland, Country M. Like Rongyao Company, there were guards at the entrance of Hoggy Company during the day. Only the official employees of Hoggy Company could enter the company. After arriving at the entrance of Hoggy's company, Guxian paused for a moment, then said to Zhang Zhengui and the others, "My sister and I are at the entrance, you guys can go in." "Since we're already here, how can we not go in?" When Zhang Zhengui heard Guxian's words, he knew that Guxian thought that he couldn't bring them into Hoggy's company. After all, a big company like this didn't allow outsiders to enter. "Hey, I know that such a big company doesn't allow outsiders to enter, but since I can bring you all here, I can't let you all wait for us at the door, right?" Zhang Zhengui's words sounded as if he had something to do with Hoggy Company, and even represented Hoggy Company. As soon as Zhang Zhengui finished speaking, Guxian's roommate, who was with Zhang Zhengui, followed up with a rather proud tone. "Guxian, don't you know who Zhengui is? His uncle works at Hoggy Company. It's easy for him to bring you all into the company." His words were full of pride. It was as if Zhang Zhengui's relative working at Hoggy Company was a great thing. "So, can we go in?" After Zhang Zhengui and the others had bragged in front of her and Guxian, Yun Jian said faintly, "Hey, I'll ask my uncle to come out and pick us up." Zhang Zhengui made a phone call. After a while, a middle-aged man in a suit came out of Hoggy Company and brought everyone into the company. "That's my uncle. My uncle is from Hoggy's company." Zhang Zhengui wanted to show off his skills as soon as he stepped into the company, but he was interrupted by Zhang Zhengui. Just as he was about to brag, a tall figure appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, the tall figure was being escorted by a group of bodyguards. "Ah, isn't that Hoggy Company's CEO, Mayor?" Zhang Zhengui shouted. Then, he wanted to show off his knowledge in front of Yun Jian, so he deliberately coughed twice. After adjusting his state of mind, he continued, "This Hoggy Company's CEO Mayor is not a simple person. Seeing Mayor pass by in the distance, Zhang Jiangui was just bragging to Yun Jian when Guxian's voice sounded. Chapter 1135. Hearing Guxian's words, Zhang Jiangui, who was about to boast, immediately shut his mouth. After being stunned, Zhang Jiangui said faintly, "What? That's the CEO of Hoggy Company. He's the son of the chairman of Hoggy Company and the future heir of Hoggy Company. You said that he attended your parents' wedding a while ago? Pfft. Ha ha ha, don't be delusional. How could people like us meet such a big shot like him? You must have mistaken him for someone else." When Zhang Jiangui heard Guxian's words, he didn't take them seriously at all. He immediately sneered. Zhang Jiangui laughed, and the two roommates who were in cahoots with him also laughed. "Uncle, let's go to the interview place." After laughing, Zhang Jiangui led the way to the interview place. Hoggy Company was one of the top 10 international corporations. Like Rongyao Company, it gathered elites and talents from all walks of life throughout the year. Therefore, there was an independent space that was specially decorated as an interview place. Outside of this independent space, there was also a waiting room before the interview. As soon as they walked into the waiting room, they were surrounded by young people waiting for the interview. At this time, they were all very anxious and were obviously worried about whether they could pass the interview smoothly. "Little girl, do you see it? This is the interview place of a big company. How is it? Amazing, right?" Zhang Jiangui continued to boast to Yun Jian in high spirits, but he was very anxious at this moment. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. The waiting room before the interview was only separated from the corridor by a floor-to-ceiling glass window. From here, one could look through the glass window and see the closed door across the corridor. "Hee, are you curious? Do you know where that place is?" Seeing that Yun Jian ignored him and looked at the closed door across the corridor, Zhang Jiangui walked over and said. Yun Jian still ignored him. She naturally knew where that place was. From the moment she heard that Zhang Jiangui and his group were going to interview at Hoggy Company, she already knew the structure of this place like the back of her hand. It could even be said that the reason she agreed to enter the company with Zhang Jiangui and his group today was because she knew that opposite the interview waiting room that's the meeting room for the leaders of Hoggy Company. Zhang Jiangui continued to boast. Even if Yun Jian ignored him, he couldn't stop bragging. "Do you know why the CEO of Hoggy Company was here? Hey, they're having a meeting over there. It's said to be a very important board meeting." "Oh? Does that mean the chairman of Hoggy Company will also be here?" Zhang Jiangui's roommate also exclaimed in surprise. "That's right. After the board meeting, we might have a chance to see the chairman of Hoggy Company." Zhang Jiangui gestured exaggeratedly. It felt like being able to see the CEO of Hoggy Company was a blessing of several lifetimes. However, as soon as Zhang Jiangui's exaggerated boasting ended, he saw from the corner of his eye that Yun Jian had already stepped out of the door of the interview waiting room. She was almost standing at the door of the meeting room. Zhang Jiangui and his group were shocked. Then, with Zhang Jiangui taking the lead, he and his uncle rushed to the front and quickly ran up. Then, Zhang Jiangui looked at Yun Jian and said in a low voice. Chapter 1136. Zhang Jiangui and his uncle hurriedly ran in front of Yun Jian to stop her. Zhang Jiangui even lowered his voice and said to her. The reason he lowered his voice was because he was afraid that the Hoggy Company board members in the meeting room would hear the noise outside and come out to chase them away. If that happened, Zhang Jiangui might not even be able to pass the interview. If they disturbed the board meeting, even Zhang Jiangui's uncle, who had already become an official employee of Hoggy Company, would probably be fired. Compared to Zhang Jiangui and his uncle's exaggerated behavior, Guxian narrowed his eyes slightly and did not stop them. He knew that his sister was not an ordinary person. This was obvious when she admitted that she was the racer SS and knew the witch, the chairman of Rongyao Company. The witch, the chairman of Rongyao Company, who was famous for her racing, actually stopped racing for a few years because of Yun Jian and SS. This was the legendary friendship. For a person to do this for another person, it was definitely not something that could be done between strangers. Therefore, Guxian thought that his sister was definitely not an ordinary person. Therefore, he did not stop them and just stood aside and watched. Seeing Zhang Jiangui and his uncle standing in front of her, Yun Jian frowned slightly in annoyance. Then she raised her eyebrows and said, "I can't go in?" After hearing Yun Jian's words, Zhang Jiangui almost shouted at Yun Jian. However, because Yun Jian was beautiful and he wanted to pursue her, he suppressed the urge to beat Yun Jian up. Of course you can't go in. The people sitting here are all the leaders of Hoggy Company. And today's board meeting is personally supported by the chairman of Hoggy Company. If you go in, you'll be screwed. Zhang Jiangui suppressed his anger and said to Yun Jian. Just as he said this, he was interrupted by Yun Jian. Matt is also in there? Matt. Zhang Jiangui was stunned when he heard the name. Then, he immediately realized that Matt was the name of the chairman of Hoggy Company. Of course, it's a board meeting today, and it's being presided over by the chairman himself. Zhang Jiangui paused for a moment before continuing. That's it. However, they heard Yun Jian's red lips curl up. Her slightly raised lips, coupled with her exquisite face, made Zhang Jiangui and the group of men mesmerized. For a moment, they couldn't react. Yun Jian turned her body slightly and bypassed Zhang Jiangui and his uncle who were blocking her way. She reached out her hand and gently placed it on the door handle. Then, she grabbed the door handle and pulled it down. The door creaked, but it didn't open. It was obvious that someone had locked the door. Zhang Jiangui and his uncle were mesmerized by Yun Jian's smile just now. Now that they suddenly saw Yun Jian actually opening the door, the two of them were almost scared out of their wits. However, when they saw Yun Jian open the door, it didn't open because it was locked from the inside. Zhang Jiangui and his uncle heaved a huge sigh of relief. When they came back to their senses, Zhang Jiangui said proudly, "Little girl, this board meeting isn't somewhere you and I can enter. There are many bodyguards inside, and the soundproofing of this room is quite amazing. More importantly, when the board meeting is held, the meeting room will definitely be locked because outsiders can't enter and interfere." Zhang Jiangui just said that he was a member of Hoggy Company and spoke to Yun Jian in the noble and flaunting tone of Hoggy Company. However, he saw Yun Jian take out a small iron wire from her trouser pocket and insert it into the keyhole of the meeting room door. With a click, the door's lock was opened. Zhang Jiangui's words instantly stopped. At this moment, Zhang Jiangui and his uncle, as well as everyone present, were stunned. Chapter 1137. Oh my God! Zhang Jiangui and his uncle, as well as the other two roommates of Guxian, were all dumbfounded. Even if she was a professional lockpicker, she should first look at the lock and ask what was going on before picking the door, right? How could Yun Jian open the door with a thin wire as if she was performing magic? Oh my God, am I living in a movie? The other two roommates of Guxian, one of them who looked quiet but was actually very wild, said in a daze. Everyone present was so stunned by Yun Jian's move that they forgot that they were trying to stop Yun Jian from opening the door of the conference room. However, at this moment, Yun Jian had already opened the door and kicked it in. Her actions were crisp and nimble, not like what a teenage girl should do at all. Yun Jian kicked the door open. Inside the conference room, a long rectangular table was placed in front of them, and both sides of it were filled with the board of directors and major shareholders of Hoggy Company. In front of the large computer screen, which was the seat at the top, sat a middle-aged man who was over 50 years old. This middle-aged foreign man was Mayor's biological father, as well as the chairman of Hoggy Company, Matt. Matt was a successful businessman, but he wasn't a successful father or husband. In terms of business, he could be considered a business genius. He had a smart business mind since he was young, and he had an amazing business mind. He became a talent at a young age. Although the original Hoggy Company had been around for a long time, it had been deteriorating year by year. When it was under Matt's control, Hoggy Company was about to declare bankruptcy. However, under Matt's control, Hoggy Company had developed from a company that was about to declare bankruptcy to a large company that was now one of the top 10 multinational companies in the world. Even Rongyao Company was inferior to Hoggy Company in terms of international status. Matt was undoubtedly the strongest in the business world, and he was the most successful entrepreneur in everyone's eyes. It was also because of this glorious history that the board of directors and major shareholders sitting on both sides of the long table, as well as sitting across from him, were filled with respect for Matt. In the meeting, as long as Matt didn't say anything, they wouldn't move an inch. Ahem. Until Matt coughed softly, then slammed the table and stood up. The board of directors and major shareholders around him were all attentive. I, Matt, have been in the business world for more than 40 years. I, Matt, have been in the business world since I was 8 years old, officially entered the circle at 16 years old, and took over Hoggy Company at 20 years old. I have been the chairman for 30 years now. Rongyao Company is just a junior. Do you think I, Matt, can't beat it?
Matt stood and slammed the table angrily.
His anger could be felt by the board of directors and major shareholders. Chairman, please calm down.
Have some water first.
One of the shareholders hurriedly poured a glass of water for my da. Just as he was about to pass it over to my da.
Of the...
Matt roared even more angrily. Drink my ass. Because... All of you, correct your mentality. I'll give you half a year. In half a year, I want Rongyao Company to be under Hoggy Company's name. Matt was planning to destroy Rongyao Company in half a year. The board of directors and shareholders present were all impressed by Matt's words. However, at this moment, the door was unlocked from the outside with a click, and a beautiful figure came in. At the same time, the owner of this figure looked straight at Matt, and immediately said without hesitation. Chapter 1138. Not long ago, when she met Mayor and my NI at Rongyao Company, Yun Jian asked Mayor to pass a message to Matt on her behalf. Tell Matt that if he doesn't want to disappear in the annals of history, he'd better behave himself. If he dares to do anything to Rongyao Company again, he'd better wash his neck and wait for death. Yun Jian knew that Mayor must have passed this message to his father, Matt. Furthermore, my dad was holding a board of directors meeting here today, and he had even said those words. What did that mean? It meant that he was unrepentant. Yun Jian hadn't broken in just now, and the meeting room was soundproofed. Logically speaking, Yun Jian, who was standing outside the door, shouldn't have been able to hear the sounds in the meeting room. But Yun Jian's ears were sharp. No matter how good the soundproofing was, 1999 wasn't as advanced as the modern era. So no matter how good the soundproofing was, as long as she listened quietly, she would definitely be able to hear the sounds. Yun Jian heard the sounds just now. That was why she had broken through the door and said those words. Matt, who was standing in front of the board of directors and major shareholders, saw Yun Jian suddenly break in, and his eyelids twitched violently. Who was this little girl who suddenly broke in? Why did he feel like he had heard her say those words somewhere before? Glancing around the room, Yun Jian found that Mayor wasn't present. But it didn't matter, because Yun Jian's target wasn't Mayor. Matt saw Yun Jian, and his experienced face scrunched up tightly. But with decades of business experience, Matt calmed down quickly. Who are you? Matt looked at Yun Jian and asked with a frown. Matt was different from all the successful businessmen and powerful people that Yun Jian had met before. Matt was a businessman who was truly worthy of respect. Yun Jian admitted that if Matt's ambition was a little smaller and he didn't target her Rongyao Company, she definitely wouldn't be standing here today to deal with Matt. He even admired this old senior from the bottom of his heart. Unfortunately, in the business world, there were no eternal allies. There were only profit-seeking businessmen. He saw with his own eyes that Yun Jian had stepped through the door and talked to the chairman of Hoggy Company in such a tone. Zhang Jiangue and his uncle almost wet their pants. The two of them didn't dare to leave, but they didn't dare to stay either. Even Gu Xian's other two roommates were so scared that they broke out in cold sweat. You don't need to know who I am. Yun Jian simply crossed her arms in front of her chest. Her beautiful body made people's hearts itch for no reason. As soon as he finished speaking, Yun Jian's lazy expression suddenly changed. Her expression became solemn and respectful, and her eyes suddenly reflected a light that made people tremble. In the next second she said, You just need to know that if Hoggy Company dares to touch Rongyao Company, I have the ability to make sure that Hoggy Company won't see tomorrow's sun. Maida's aura was enough to make the board of directors and major shareholders revere him with awe and respect. Moreover, in the eyes of the Taoist businessman, Matt's aura was known to be unyielding. Some people even made a big fuss about Matt's aura, saying that Matt's gaze alone was enough to kill everyone present. But now, Yun Jian was standing at the door. She was just a teenage girl, but the aura she exuded was not inferior to Matt's at all. In terms of aura, Yun Jian's arrogance was even more daunting than Matt's. Dad, is the meeting over yet? Just as the atmosphere became tense, a tall and slender mare suddenly entered the door, surrounded by bodyguards. When Mare saw Yun Jian, he was completely stunned. After a pause, Mare looked at Yun Jian in shock and said, I'm sorry. Chapter 1139. Mare was stunned when he saw Yun Jian. He did not expect Yun Jian to be here, so his tone was a little stunned and he blurted it out. His tone was casual as well, but overall, Mayor's shock was written all over his face.
Mayor, what did you say?
Matt was an excellent businessman indeed. He reacted quickly and asked his son with a frown in a relatively shocked tone. In spite of this, Zhang Jiangui and his uncle, Gu Xian and his two other roommates, as well as the board of directors and major shareholders, were all dumbfounded. This teenage girl before them, a girl who had yet to reach adulthood, she was actually the director of Rongyao Company, one of the top 10 multinational corporations. In terms of status and capability, she was on par with Hoggy Company, the Rongyao Company. You're kidding, right? Gu Xian, your sister is. She's the director of Rongyao Company? Zhang Jiangui was stupefied. He stared at Yun Jian blankly and asked Gu Xian in a tone so shocked that he was at a loss for words. His tone, however, was still filled with disbelief. When Zhang Jiangui reached the last part of his sentence, he suddenly recalled something. Right, Gu Xian had said when he saw Hoggy Company's CEO, Mayor, when he entered the gate earlier. He had said that Hoggy Company's CEO, Mayor, looked familiar. Was he not the guest Yun Jian had invited to attend their parents' wedding? Gu Xian's words were directly refuted by Zhang Jiangui with a sneer. Zhang Jiangui would never believe it even if he saw a ghost. What a joke! Hoggy Company's CEO Mayor had gone to Country Z's Longmen City to attend the wedding of Gu Xian's parents, who came from God knows where. This was like an earthling taking a spaceship to the sun. This was something that was simply impossible to happen. But this time, the CEO of Hoggy Company, Mayor, had admitted it himself. Zhang Jiangui had no choice but to believe it. Therefore, Zhang Jiangui was completely stunned on the spot. At this moment, Zhang Jiangui was so ashamed of his previous behavior that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. In the beginning, he even deliberately showed off Hoggy Company in front of Yun Jian and Gu Xian. Now that he thought about it, his skin was really thick. Showing off in front of the chairman of Rongyao Company was like showing off in front of Tiger that he had caught a baby tiger. Zhang Jiangui and his uncle instantly turned pale. Chairman, she's the chairman of Rongyao Company. Mayor glanced at his father and spoke in a distant tone. In the company, Mayor had never called Matt father and Matt had always called his son by his first name. Oh my God! The chairman of Rongyao Company is actually a young girl who's still wet behind the ears. This news is too shocking. If this news gets out, it'll definitely be the headline of the international newspapers. Quick, call the reporters over. This news is too shocking. The board of directors and major shareholders took out their phones and tried to call the headquarters of the international press conference. Yun Jian had heard the conversation between the board of directors and major shareholders early in the morning. She suddenly raised her hand and tossed it. Dozens of razor blades appeared in Yun Jian's hand as she tossed it out. By the time everyone came back to their senses, the dozens of razor blades had already pierced into the rectangular table in front of the board of directors and major shareholders. There was a razor blade in front of each of them, and it was deeply embedded into the table. This exquisite blade-throwing technique made this group of old urchins who only knew business but did not know any martial arts stop in their tracks. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. However, at this moment, Yun Jian suddenly spoke. Chapter 1140. Headless Corpse? The people present were all big shots who had been in the business world for decades. How could they not have heard of headless corpses? Yun Jian's words clearly meant that if anyone present dared to say another word, she would turn them into headless corpses. God! No one present would have thought of such cruel words even if they used their brains. But Yun Jian, she actually said it so easily? She was still a young girl who was not even 18 years old yet. The old men present, who were the board of directors and major shareholders, looked at the razor blade on the table in front of them and felt their hair stand on end. After being in the business world for so many years, the board of directors and major shareholders were used to the ups and downs, but they had never seen anything like this before. How could a young girl have such an overbearing aura? When Yun Jian opened her mouth and said those words, everyone present suddenly had an illusion. It was as if they would really become headless corpses if they went against her wishes. At this moment, even Matt, who had the strongest aura, could not help but straighten his body. Not to mention Zhang Jiangui and his uncle, as well as Gu Xian's two roommates. Zhang Jiangui and Gu Xian's two roommates felt that they were used to the trifles of the school, and they were also students who messed around. Usually, They would participate in some group fights inside and outside the school. Then, a large group of brothers would take them to nightclubs to flirt with beautiful girls. It was also because of this kind of life that Zhang Jiangui and the other two felt that they were invincible. This was because they had a group of powerful brothers behind them. If anyone pisses me off, I will take all my brothers and fight them. This was what Zhang Jiangui had always thought before he saw Yun Jian's exquisite razor blade throwing skills. But until just now, when he saw Yun Jian's real skills, he was completely stunned. More than 10 razor blades, with a wave of her hand, she successfully pierced the table in front of the board of directors and major shareholders, 3 inches into the wood. How many people in this world could achieve such a level of skill? If she threw the razor blade into a person's brain, wouldn't the blade also be 3 inches into the wood? Zhang Jiangui trembled. This was simply not something a person could do. Zhang Jiangui felt that from the moment he started to call Yun Jian little sister until now, he suddenly had an illusion. How was this little sister? This was simply a god. And the previous skill of prying the door. Just as Zhang Jiangui was thinking this, Yun Jian had already arrived in front of Matt. She fixed her eyes on Matt, without hiding the killing intent in her eyes. Matt, let me give you one last piece of advice. Chapter 1141. If the Rongyao Company alone was not enough to make Matt afraid, then an assassin organization like the Inferno Ring was enough to make a righteous figure like Matt tremble in fear. Existences like the Rongyao Company and Hoggy Company belonged to the righteous forces. Although Matt was the chairman of Hoggy Company and belonged to the righteous forces, as the chairman, Matt was able to stabilize Hoggy Company's international position until now. It was not difficult to see that Matt must have cooperated with a certain black market force. Therefore, to Matt and his group, the Inferno Ring was definitely not an unfamiliar organization. They knew very well what kind of position the Inferno Ring had in the world. And now that he heard what Yun Jian said just now, it would be strange if Matt was not frightened. Even the black market that Matt cooperated with the chairman of Hoggy Company was not on the same level as the Inferno Ring. Not to mention the existence that destroyed the Inferno Ring. Usually, if a righteous force wanted to coexist forever, they would find a black market force to support each other. Of course, these things were definitely done in secret. Matt's Hoggy Company naturally had a backer, so it was not difficult to explain why he was so shocked after hearing Yun Jian's words. At this moment, Matt only had one thought in his mind. Could it be that the Rongyao Company's backer was even bigger than Hoggy Company's? The underground black market that destroyed the internationally famous assassin organization, the Inferno Ring, was it not? What is the Inferno Ring? At the moment when the atmosphere was unusually heavy, Zhang Jiangui's desperate voice sounded weakly. He suddenly had an impulse to claim credit in front of the chairman of Hoggy Company, Matt. Or perhaps he wanted to attract Matt's attention. As long as he attracted Matt's attention, he would not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of his life. Therefore, Zhang Jiangui rolled his eyes and immediately thought of some flattering words. Then, he turned to look at Merd with his big round eyes and immediately blurted out, "Merd, you're right. Chairman, you are the big boss of Hoggy Company. That Inferno Ring is nothing. In the entire state of Maryland, oh no, in the entire world, who can be your opponent? A mere Inferno Ring, you can crush it with a single kick. My roommates and I worship you so much, When Zhang Jiangui wanted to continue speaking, Matt suddenly grabbed a pen holder on the long table and viciously threw it at Zhang Jiangui, who was standing at the door. The pen holder, along with the pens inside, spilled out, and was smashed onto Zhang Jiangui's head from afar. Zhang Jiangui did not even dare to howl. He forcefully endured the pain, but then he heard Matt's furious voice sounded. Inferno Ring's presence is second only to an Hun Group and Guxia mercenaries internationally. Even if Inferno Ring is annihilated, Hoggy Holdings wouldn't dare to boast in such a tone. What you just said, if I hear half of it from someone else's mouth in the future, you're finished. Security, immediately take this person out of the company, and never let him enter Hoggy Company's door for the rest of his life. Matt roared furiously. Just because of Zhang Jiangui's words, Zhang Jiangui completely ruined his future. Zhang Jiangui was stunned. He did not expect Matt to be so afraid of that Inferno Ring. In fact, Matt was not afraid of the Inferno Ring, but he was afraid that if Hoggy Company's reputation of stepping on the Inferno Ring spread, the strong people in the world would not be convinced. Especially if Han and Kosha mercenaries heard this, they would be unhappy and would want to kill him.
It would be a piece of cake to destroy the decades of hard work of his Hoggy company in a day.
Chapter 1142. Zhang Jiangue did not expect that he would end up like this just because he wanted to curry favor with Matt. Zhang Jiangue was still in a daze even after he was dragged out. As Zhang Jiangue's uncle, he did not dare to make a sound. If he made a sound, it would mean that he was related to Zhang Jiangue, and he would lose his job. One had to know that he had used a lot of connections to get into Hoggy's company. If he was fired now, where would he find a better job than Hoggy's company? Matt, we can talk about our business now. Just as my Da was about to lose control of his anger, Yun Jian smirked and walked to the side of the conference room to pull out a stool. She sat down with her legs crossed and spoke leisurely. Matt frowned when he saw Yun Jian sitting down as if she was in her own territory. He walked over to Yun Jian. What do you want? Matt had to look at Yun Jian in a new light. This young lady was not to be trifled with. I don't have much patience, Yun Jian said. She reached out and rubbed her fingertips on the armrest of the table. As she spoke, she lowered her head to look at the floor. Her pretty face, paired with her long eyelashes, drew a gasp from everyone present. Yun Jian continued, I don't like to beat around the bush. I'll tell you directly. The Kosha mercenaries are behind the Rongyao company. Matt, if you dare to touch my Rongyao company, you'll be making an enemy out of the Kosha mercenaries. Yun Jian suddenly stood up when she said this. That's all I have to say. Think about it carefully. Yun Jian made a strange red arc with her lips. She turned around and walked out of the conference room. Before she left, Yun Jian waved at Gu Xian. Seeing this, Gu Xian followed him out in a daze. The group of old men, including Zhang Jiangue's uncle and Gu Xian's two roommates, were all stunned. After a moment of silence, a major shareholder suddenly said, No wonder. No wonder. No wonder she's not afraid of the Rongyao company. The Kosha mercenaries are behind the Rongyao company. Not to mention this major shareholder, even Maida himself was scared out of his wits. Just when everyone thought that Maida wouldn't say a single word, he sighed heavily and said with a heavy sigh, That's right, Maida. From today onwards, withdraw the project to suppress the Rongyao company. No one is allowed to lay a hand on the Rongyao company. Kosha mercenaries. He could not afford to offend them. Gu Xian, who walked out of Hoggy company, was still in a state of shock. Sister Yu, Gu Xian wanted to ask about the doubts in his heart, but Yun Jian's voice continued, Sure brother, keep it a secret. Yun Jian smiled and said, In the future, if you encounter any problems in Maryland, you can ask the Rongyao company's president for help. Gu Xian was stunned by Yun Jian's words, but he nodded involuntarily. Although he was full of doubts, he did not ask further. After sending Gu Xian back to school, Yun Jian went straight back to Rongyao company. At the same time, in the president's office of Rongyao company, just as Yun Jian walked in, she saw Lan Su sitting on the soft chair with a gunny sack in her hands with a rather aloof expression. Her demeanor did not match the sack in her hands. The temptress was sitting in front of her desk. Adam was standing beside Lan Su. The most eye-catching thing was the gunny sack in Lan Su's hands. Yun Jian knew that it contained the pots and pans that Lan Su had brought all the way from Longmen City, intending to bring them back to Yulong mainland. She did not expose Lan Su but smiled with her eyes squinted. After entering the office, Yun Jian said, Get ready. Let's go. Chapter 1143. Heh, Sister Jian, where are you heading to? Seeing Yun Jian enter the office, a luring demon stood up from her desk and went to Yun Jian, asking as she did so. To a good place. Yun Jian answered with a chuckle and told a luring demon, I've warned Matt. If he dares to target Rongyao company again, I'll annihilate him once and for all when I come back. Yun Jian's expression was cold when she said the latter half of the sentence, not looking like she was joking at all. Heh, Sister Jian is indeed domineering. Even a luring demon could not help exclaiming. Following Yun Jian back then was the best decision she had ever made in her life. When Rongyao company had just started, Yun Jian was still a girl of 13 or 14 years old. Her age was hardly convincing. However, a luring demon was already at her wits' end back then. Her father's company had gone bankrupt and was in huge debt. Unable to repay the debt, the group of people who came to a luring demon's house to collect the debt had even set their sights on her. Those people were inhumane. They even wanted to defile her in front of her parents. A luring demon was a tough nut to crack. She was so desperate that she was ready to bite her tongue and commit suicide. At the most desperate moment, before those people could do anything to her, Yunjian appeared. A luring demon thought that she would never forget that scene for the rest of her life. At 13 or 14 years old, Yunjian, who had yet to lose her childishness, was like a grim reaper. She killed the group of people and stared at a luring demon with a cold gaze. Then, she extended her hands to a luring demon and said something that changed a luring demon's fate. Are you willing to follow me? Let's go. Your office should be renovated. Remember to prepare some snacks when I come over next time. Yunjian rubbed her empty stomach and gestured to Adam and Lan Su, interrupting a luring demon's reminiscence. Watching Yunjian walk out of the office, the demoness took a step forward.
However, she stopped in her tracks and stood in the same spot as she watched Yunjian and the other two's figures gradually disappear into the distance.
Sigh, demoness, will follow you for the rest of my life. After Yunjian left the office, demoness' soft voice suddenly sounded. As the last word fell, the echoing sound in the empty office gradually faded until it disappeared. Country A. A southern country. This was the second time that Yunjian had come here. Country A's economic level was relatively backward, so when Yunjian, Lan Su, and Adam arrived, there was not even a hotel within a radius of 8 miles. Finally, they found a hotel in a relatively lively village. CE hadn't arrived yet, so Yunjian and the others had to stay here for a while. Country A was a relatively poor country, and the hotel that Yunjian and the other two were staying in was the most luxurious house in the village. A 2-story house built with mud and grass. If it rained at night, the house would definitely leak. After settling down, Yunjian went downstairs and asked the hotel owner's daughter, a young lady in her 20s, how far was it from here to the ancient tomb? Although she had been here once, when CE had an accident last time, Yunjian was anxious, so she didn't remember the way. The hotel owner's daughter was called Eliza. Eliza was a very beautiful lady, and women in Country A were used to wearing a veil and wrapping themselves up tightly. After Yunjian asked for the way, Eliza kindly warned Yunjian in Country A's language. Our Hassa village isn't very peaceful at night. A few days ago, many girls were kidnapped and defiled in the middle of the night, and they were only sent back the next morning. There were also many tourists who lost their money. There were also a few murder cases, but no police officers were willing to deal with these matters, so those criminals were never punished. Chapter 1144. Country A was a backward country. At the same time, the laws in Country A were not perfect. If this was Country Z, if such crimes like rape, theft, and murder happened, police officers would have come out early to investigate. Then, the culprit would be arrested and brought to justice. Therefore, the people of Country Z, whether it was 1999 or now, could not understand the backward living environment of Country A. There were even some foreigners who died in Country A, but no one called the police. Country A was such a country. Yunjian was standing at the front desk. After hearing Eliza's words, she understood it quite well. Yunjian nodded silently. Okay, thank you. Eliza reminded her out of kindness. Yunjian naturally had to express her gratitude. Eliza was not only a beautiful girl, but more importantly, she had a kind heart. After hearing Yunjian's words, Eliza smiled and nodded at Yunjian. Then, Yunjian asked Eliza some things in Country A's language. Eliza replied to all of them. Eliza's parents had gone out to the market. As they chatted, Yunjian heard Eliza talk about her family. Eliza's parents were farmers. Today they brought the things they made to the market to sell to earn money. Eliza, on the other hand, was at home looking after the hotel. Just as the two of them were talking, a restless voice came from outside the door. Oh my God! It's all your fault. You had to travel during the summer vacation to this god-forsaken place. After walking for so long and almost dying in the desert, you finally found a hotel. Little Chu, this isn't my fault. They insisted on organizing this trip to Country A. They even said that they were here to look for treasures. I don't think there's even a ghost here. What attracted Yun Jian was that this group of noisy voices were conversing in Chinese. Country Z? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She did not expect to meet people from her own country in a place like Country A. At this moment, 5 young people in their 20s dressed as university students walked in through the door. Among them, there were 2 women and 3 men. The man and woman walking at the very front were undoubtedly the 2 people who had spoken just now. Suddenly seeing Yun Jian's face, which was unique to her country, a girl walking behind her was pleasantly surprised. Then she walked over and asked Yun Jian in a calm but excited tone, "Are you from Z?" She paused for a moment. Seeing that Yun Jian was ignoring her, the girl pointed at herself and introduced herself, "My name is Ningxia. That girl is my friend. Her name is Lin Xiaochu," and Ningxia pointed at the people behind her and introduced them one by one. Then, she had the same feeling of joy as when she met people from abroad. She looked at Yun Jian with expectant eyes. Meeting people from his own country abroad, especially in a place where there were very few people from his own country, was a very happy occasion. Yun Jian. Yun Jian briefly introduced herself in Chinese. In return, Ningxia smiled. As for Lin Xiaochu, she did not even look at Yun Jian and stood in front of Eliza. When Lin Xiaochu passed by Yun Jian, she even glared at Yun Jian. It was only when she stood in front of Eliza that she suddenly realized that she and her friends did not know Country A's language. At this moment, Lin Xiaochu suddenly remembered that when they came in just now, Yun Jian was communicating with Eliza very smoothly in Country A's language. Chapter 1145. Little Chu, how can you be like this? Even Ningxia felt embarrassed when she heard Little Chu Lin's tone. Ningxia turned to look at Yun Jian and said apologetically, "Yun Jian, I'm sorry. Little Chu is like this. Please don't lower yourself to her level." Who's lower herself to whose level? Ningxia, whose good friend are you? Who are you helping? Little Chu Lin shouted angrily when she heard Ningxia's words. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She did have a good impression of Ningxia. As for this girl called Little Chu Lin, she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to her at first glance. Although Little Chu Lin was Ningxia's good friend, she put Ningxia in a difficult position. However, at this moment, a female voice with Chinese pronunciation that wasn't very accurate rang out. "Stop arguing, I can understand a bit of Chinese." Yun Jian looked back slightly. She saw Eliza wrap herself in a robe. Eliza used the robe to cover her face and nose, only revealing a pair of black eyes. Then she spoke. Eliza could speak Chinese? However, Yun Jian wasn't very surprised. The people who were surprised were Ningxia, Little Chu Lin, and the other 4. Especially Little Chu Lin. She looked at Eliza in surprise. When she came back to her senses, Little Chu Lin shouted at Eliza angrily, "You know Chinese?" "My maternal grandmother is from Z country, so I know a bit of Chinese," Eliza said slowly in a rather unfamiliar tone. "Since you know Chinese, why didn't you say so earlier? You did it on purpose, didn't you?" Little Chu Lin shouted. "Did it on purpose? What do you mean? I only know a bit of Chinese." Eliza only knew a little, so she couldn't completely understand Little Chu Lin's words. "Hello, we want to check into a hotel." Just as Little Chu Lin was about to continue to act out, a tall boy with outstanding looks stepped out to resolve the awkwardness. "Okay." Eliza understood and immediately arranged for Ningxia's group to check in. At this moment, Yun Jian could clearly see Lin Xiaochu's arrogant attitude immediately vanish the moment the boy who stepped forward to resolve the awkward situation spoke. On the contrary, Lin Xiaochu raised her eyes to look at the boy, revealing a shy expression of a little girl. The guy who stood up to defuse the awkward atmosphere went up to Yun Jian to introduce himself and ask after he was done with the procedure. "Hello, little girl. My name is Hu Chirue. Just now, my junior sister was rude to you. I apologize to you here. Also, I want to ask you, are you alone? Are you planning to go to the tomb like us?" Within a radius of 8 miles, there was only one ancient tomb. When foreigners came, they would usually go to the ancient tomb. "Not alone." Yun Jian answered the previous question. Lan Su and Adam were resting upstairs, so Hu Chirue thought that Yun Jian was alone. "Senior Rue, this girl clearly doesn't want to talk to us." "Why are you talking to her?
Little Chu Lin fiercely glared at Yun Jian, who was talking to Hu Chirui. However, because little Chu Lin was talking to Hu Chirui, her voice carried a hint of coquettishness. Hu Chirui opened his mouth, but in the end, he didn't say anything. At this moment, Eliza told Ningxia, little Chu Lin, and the others what she told Yun Jian before, that Hassa village wasn't very peaceful. After hearing Eliza's words, little Chu Lin suddenly looked at Yun Jian proudly, then said in a boastful tone, "The 5 of us aren't afraid. We're all from the university's Taekwondo club."
Chapter 1146. As Lin Xiaochu spoke, she purposely turned her head to glance at Yun Jian.
That expression, that look, it was as if she was saying that we know Taekwondo, but what about you?
You don't know anything. Just wait for the robbers to come crying to you. Xiaochu, don't say that. My current abilities are only enough to hang around in our university. When I really step out into society, I'm still useless. Hu Chirui was very tactful and knew his limits. However, as soon as Hu Chirui finished speaking, Lin Xiaochu continued, "Senior Rui, you're too humble." As Lin Xiaochu spoke, she turned her head to look at Yun Jian. Her eyes were filled with a strong sense of provocation.
After 2 seconds of silence, Lin Xiaochu said, If something happens, don't beg Senior Rui or us to save you."
Yun Jian lightly glanced at Lin Xiaochu, then she turned around and went upstairs. Yun Jian usually ignored these kinds of people.
"Tieskai, what's there to be proud of?"
Lin Xiaochu saw this and began to say a few more words. However, as soon as Lin Xiaochu finished speaking, Hu Chirui reprimanded Lin Xiaochu. "Xiaochu, don't be so rude." Lin Xiaochu listened to Hu Chirui's words very much. After all, Lin Xiaochu had special feelings for Hu Chirui. For a moment, everyone was speechless. At this moment, Yun Jian had already returned to the 2nd floor. Although this hotel was quite shabby, there were quite a lot of rooms. Yun Jian and Lan Su shared a room, while Adam had his own room. Not long after Yun Jian returned to her room, Hu Chirui and the others noisily moved their luggage upstairs. They stayed in a room not far from Yun Jian's room. The night quickly darkened. This hotel didn't have any electric lights, and usually relied on candles for illumination. Now, Yun Jian was lying on the bed, looking up at the stars and moon through the broken window that couldn't block the cold wind from blowing in from outside. There was no internet in country A, so she couldn't make calls.
"Yun Jian, you're not asleep yet?"
Lan Su turned over and moved closer to Yun Jian. "Okay," Yun Jian answered softly. There was silence for 2 seconds. Just when Lan Su thought that she would not speak again, Yun Jian said faintly, "I'm going to sleep." Just as Yun Jian was about to close her beautiful eyes, she seemed to hear something. That pair of long and narrow eyelashes didn't even have time to close before they suddenly opened.
"Yun Jian, there's a sound."
Lan Su also opened her eyes. The two of them instantly lost their drowsiness.
Yun Jian nodded lightly, then whispered to Lan Su, "Sleep."
The word sleep naturally referred to pretending to be asleep. Lan Su had followed Yun Jian for so long, so she naturally understood immediately. At that moment, Yun Jian and Lan Su closed their eyes. In the darkness, the door that was on the verge of collapsing and didn't have a lock was opened. A dark figure slipped in through the door as quietly as possible. After a while, Yun Jian could feel that the figure was sizing her up, and it even swallowed its saliva very thirstily. Under the moonlight, the figure reached out its hand towards Yun Jian. 3 seconds before it was about to touch Yun Jian's cheek, Yun Jian's leg, which was originally lying flat, suddenly lifted up. Her leg immediately rotated 90 degrees, and she directly kicked the figure that was trying to sneakily touch her cheek. "Ouch!" The person screamed, and was sent flying several meters by Yun Jian's kick. Chapter 1147. The moment Yun Jian kicked him, Lan Su rolled over on the bed and stood up. He then lit up the candles in the room. Adam, who was in the next room, ran over as well.
Adam had come over when he heard the commotion.
When he saw the rapist who was curled up into a ball from Yun Jian's kick and could barely breathe, he dashed over to grab the man. Then Adam directly punched the flower thief in the head, knocking him out on the spot. "It's really not peaceful here," Yun Jian said calmly with her arms crossed. At the same time, Yun Jian smirked and said, "He has an accomplice. Let's go out and watch the show."
They were just a few rapists and robbers. Did they really think they could take her down? When she was the secret agent slaying God, Yun Jian had been hunted down thousands of times by various top assassins and people on the international rankings. Therefore, she usually did not sleep well at night. As Yun Jian spoke, she had already reached the door of the dilapidated bedroom. Just as she reached the door, she turned sideways and said to Adam, "Bring them out." The same thing happened in Yun Jian and Lan Su's bedroom, Ningxia and Lin Xiaochu's bedroom, Hu Qiruwei and the other two boys' bedroom, as well as the hotel's owner, his wife, and Eliza's room. This group of robbers was not alone. They were in a group. At this moment, Lin Xiaochu had already been dragged to the entrance by a man whose face couldn't be seen. Lin Xiaochu shook her fair legs as the robber rushed her out of the room. At this moment, Hu Qiruwei and the rest arrived at the staircase and saw Lin Xiaochu being taken away. "Xiaochu!" Hu Qiruwei and the other two shouted. Ningxia was lucky because she did not sleep naked like Lin Xiaochu. That was why the man chose Lin Xiaochu instead of her. "Ah! Let go of me! Let go of me!" Just then, another robber rushed out of the room with Eliza in his arms. Eliza's parents chased after her with all their might, shouting, "Don't! Please, let my daughter go. I beg you." Eliza's parents had just chased after them when they were kicked away by the group of criminals. This group of criminals had clearly planned this. They had captured Lin Xiaochu and Eliza, but they had left behind a few people to stop Eliza's parents and Hu Qiruwei's trio. Damn it! Hu Qiruwei and the other two quickly clashed with this group of criminals. Soon, Hu Qiruwei and the other two were drenched in sweat. They were at a disadvantage. Hu Qiruwei and the other two were about to lose to these well-prepared criminals. On the other hand, Hu Qiruwei and the other two were entangled by several criminals. One of the criminals rushed forward and grabbed Ningxia, intending to take him away as well. Swish! Everyone present only heard the sound of a saber flying through the air. In the blink of an eye, the criminal who had wanted to take Ningxia away was struck in the temple by a butterfly knife. He died on the spot, his eyes wide open. Everyone present was shocked by this turn of events, and they were all dumbfounded. Even the remaining criminals at the back were so shocked by this scene that they stopped what they were doing. Bam! Before everyone present could react, they heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Everyone saw Adam tossing the rapist who had wanted to attack Yun Jian to the ground by the staircase on the second floor. Unlike the battered and exhausted people around her, Yun Jian was currently hugging her chest with her arms. She looked down at the group of people who had suddenly appeared like an outsider. Then, her red lips curled up slightly. "Here, thank you for your big gift. I'm returning it to you now." After Yun Jian finished speaking to the criminals, she kicked the unconscious rapist and mercilessly kicked him down the railing on the second floor. He fell straight to the ground floor. The rapist's blood splattered everywhere. Chapter 1148. In the blink of an eye, Yun Jian had killed someone. Moreover, she had killed two people at once. Everyone there was stupefied by Yun Jian's horrifying move, their jaws dropping in bewilderment. After all, Yun Jian was only a teenage girl. Especially today, when Hu Qiruwei and his group were about to check into the hotel, Lin Xiaochu was showing off Hu Qiruwei and his group's abilities to Yun Jian. At that time, Yun Jian did not dare to refute a single word. At least that was what Hu Qiruwei and his group thought. Yun Jian did not dare to refute them at that time. However, until just now, Yun Jian had killed two people in just a few seconds. Everyone present was horrified by her ruthless methods. How was she afraid? How was this what a teenage girl should be like? Coupled with her exquisite throwing knife skills, she was basically a demon. She was the Grim Reaper from hell. You! One of the criminals could not hold it in any longer. He screamed in fright on the spot. It was very obvious that this group of criminals had their eyes on Yun Jian and Hu Qiruwei's group for a long time. Today, they even wanted to snatch the hotel owner's daughter, Eliza, away. After all, Eliza was pretty, and was indeed the ideal target in the hearts of men. However, based on the original plan today, this group of criminals had even planned who would be the easiest to target and who would be the hardest to target. In the end, they came to the conclusion that Yun Jian was the easiest to target. Because she was the youngest, and her appearance was not the mature type. At most, she could only be considered delicate and pretty. However, There was no doubt that Yun Jian's appearance was the most outstanding among the group of women. Although she did not have the enchanting charm that men liked, she had a delicate and pretty face, as well as an exquisite figure. In addition, Yun Jian's figure was big in the areas that should be big, and small in the areas that should be small. She was simply the person that this group of criminals was fighting to get their hands on. Moreover, from the looks of it, she was the easiest to target. However, this group of criminals never expected that Yun Jian, who seemed the easiest to target, would turn out to be a homicidal maniac. She had killed 2 people in just a few seconds. Hu Qirui and the others were completely dumbfounded. At this moment, one of the criminals who had witnessed Yun Jian's knife-throwing skills, who was obviously the leader, immediately pulled out a shiny pistol from his belt.
Ah, gun.
Seeing the leader of the criminals pull out a pistol, the hotel couple turned pale with fright. In Country A, handguns were prohibited. It was obvious that this handgun had been brought in illegally. Moreover, the ruler of Country A didn't care about anything at all. Therefore, it was understandable that the criminal had a gun. Hu Qirui and the others were just university students. They used to be ordinary students. How could they have seen something like a real pistol? Therefore, when they saw the leader of the criminals take out a pistol, they were so scared that they stopped moving. Women, step forward. Otherwise, I will kill all of you here. The gangster thought that he had threatened everyone present, including Yun Jian, so he spoke arrogantly. Not only did the criminal speak in Country A's language, he even spoke in Mandarin. It seemed that this criminal could speak Mandarin. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She still stood in the distance with her arms crossed. She spoke to the criminals in Mandarin that Hu Qirui and the others could understand. I'll return the same sentence to you. Today, none of you will leave here alive. It had been a long time since she killed someone so freely. In Country Z there were laws. In a country like Country A, even if she killed someone, no one would know. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she walked down the stairs step by step with ease. The criminal holding the gun was frightened by Yun Jian's aura. Just when the criminal wanted to do something, he saw Yun Jian move. Chapter 1149. They saw Yun Jian slowly walking down the stairs, the corners of her mouth slightly raised. From her expression, it was as if she was really an innocent young girl. The criminals below couldn't help but stare blankly, completely stunned by Yun Jian's seemingly innocent expression. However, they thought in their hearts, such a beautiful little girl. Was she really the devil who killed without batting an eyelid? She had just kicked the unconscious flower thief down from the 2nd floor. A person who was asleep was kicked down from a high place. If he wasn't asleep and was kicked down from the 1st floor, he might not die. However, with Yun Jian's actions, the flower thief would definitely die. Just as the people present were thinking this, they saw that Yun Jian had already reached the middle of the stairs. Her expression suddenly changed, and the curve on her face disappeared. In the next second, everyone saw an unforgettable and frightening scene. Yun Jian stood in the middle of the stairs. Before she reached the bottom, her legs suddenly kicked, and her entire body jumped up. She jumped over 10 meters. And this 10 meters was just enough for her to use the height of the stairs to jump in front of the criminals. Before Yun Jian's body landed, the gun-wielding criminal reacted. He raised his gun, his hand on the trigger, and wanted to shoot at Yun Jian, who jumped down from the air. Be careful. The surrounding people all broke out in cold sweat for Yun Jian. Ning Xia, on the other hand, immediately shouted out nervously. Ning Xia's impression of Yun Jian wasn't bad. If it wasn't for Lin Xiaochu, perhaps Ning Xia would have already become friends with Yun Jian. Hu Qirui's heart also tightened, but he glanced at Adam and Lan Su, who were with Yun Jian. Why didn't the two of them look worried at all? Could it be that they weren't worried for their friend? That criminal had a gun in his hand. Even if Yun Jian grew wings, she still wouldn't be a match for him, right? Just as he was thinking this, Yun Jian had already jumped up to the criminal. The criminal was scared. When he thought of how Yun Jian killed 2 of his companions without batting an eyelid, his heart trembled. Die! Little girl, you forced me to do this. Before the criminal made his move, he let out a low growl. Then, he pulled the trigger and pressed it down. However, just a second before the criminal pressed down on the trigger, Yun Jian jumped in front of the criminal. She stretched out her slender front leg, and suddenly kicked the criminal's wrist that was holding the trigger. There was nothing surprising about this kick. But what was frightening was that Yunjian's kick, she broke the criminal's entire wrist. Even from where they stood, everyone could hear the loud cracking sounds coming from the gangster's wrist. The criminal's wrist was bent. His hand that was originally holding the gun toward Yunjian was kicked away by Yunjian at this moment. He was holding the gun stiffly. His hand was straight, but his whole palm was bent, facing himself. The criminal was kicked by Yunjian, and the hand holding the gun hit himself in the heart. At this moment, the criminal had already pressed the trigger, and he couldn't stop in time. Bang! The gun went up and down. The criminal fired the gun, hit himself in the fatal point, and fell to the ground on the spot. Before he died, he let out a frightened sigh. This is impossible. There was actually such a little girl in the world who could break his wrist in the fastest speed and make him kill himself. Her speed was even faster than a gun. However, the criminal had already fallen to the ground after saying the last word. Before the criminal fell to the ground, Yunjian caught the gun that he let go and sneered. So weak. Chapter 1150. When the surrounding criminals saw that Yunjian had killed the criminal holding the gun, they all retreated, as if they were planning to retreat. At this moment, the two criminals who had caught Lin Xiaochu and Eliza first had already left with the other criminals at the door when they heard that something was wrong. After Lin Xiaochu and Eliza were taken away by the criminals, they had planned to wait for the criminals in the house to succeed before leaving together. However, when they saw that 3 criminals had died in the house, the criminals saw that the situation was not good and retreated first. Meanwhile, Lin Xiaochu and Eliza had their mouths covered and their mouths grabbed by the criminals. When the two of them saw the terrifying scene just now, they could not even make a sound. Especially Lin Xiaochu. Her mouth was covered by a criminal with hair on his hands, and she almost vomited in disgust. However, she still saw Yunjian's shocking methods just now. That ruthlessness. Lin Xiaochu had always been proud that she, Hu Chirue, and the others were members of the university's Taekwondo club. Therefore, she was not afraid of being robbed on this trip at all. Firstly, it was because they knew Taekwondo. Lin Xiaochu believed that she was not weak, and Hu Chirue's Taekwondo level had already reached Black Dan 3. Secondly, it was purely because Lin Xiaochu thought that no matter how chaotic this place was, it was impossible for criminals to appear. However, not only did Lin Xiaochu miscalculate, she even thought that Yunjian was just a little girl who did not know any skills. However, the methods that Yunjian had just displayed, it made Lin Xiaochu extremely terrified. The way she killed people, it was as if she had just done a very ordinary thing. Was this still the skill that a teenage girl should have? While Lin Xiaochu was shocked, everyone standing in the house could not close their mouths anymore. Especially Hu Chirue and the others. He originally thought that Yunjian would dodge the bullet, or try to grab the gun that had been holding the criminal's gun. However, who would have thought that she would break the criminal's wrist with one kick, causing the criminal to end his own life with his own bullet? Xiaochu, let go of Xiaochu. By the time they came back to their senses, the group of criminals had already started to retreat. Meanwhile, the criminals outside had already captured Lin Xiaochu and Eliza and placed them in a van. The van also started at the same time. After seeing Yunjian's skill just now, the few criminals who stayed behind all wanted to retreat quickly to the gate. They didn't want to die. This little girl was too scary. She was simply inhuman. However, in the next second, Yunjian's hellish voice came from behind. She blurted out, "I told you, don't even think about leaving this place alive." Yunjian's voice was accompanied by a series of gunshots that sounded like machine guns. Bang 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 bang. There were still 5 criminals left in the room. Yunjian used the pistol she had just snatched to kill them in a matter of seconds. They didn't even have time to react. Yunjian fired these 5 shots without even looking. However, every shot hit a criminal's temple. Perhaps it was because Yunjian's actions were too shocking. Hu Chirue and the others in the room were stunned again. He was so shocked by Yunjian's pistol skills that he couldn't extricate himself. However, at this moment, the van outside the house had already driven away as fast as it could. Yunjian lowered her eyes. She turned around, and the pistol slid down her hand to the ground. She walked upstairs and even stretched out her hand to yawn. "Adam, take care of the scene," Yunjian said and was about to go upstairs. It was obvious that she didn't want to care about what happened next. Among Hu Chirue's group of 4, One of them was the shortest and ugliest of the three boys. He panicked when he saw Yun Jian walking upstairs.
Chapter 1151.
The shortest and ugliest boy among the three saw Yun Jian heading to the second floor, so he immediately rushed to the stairs to block Yun Jian's way.
This boy's name was Duan Tianyu.
He liked Lin Xiaochu, which was why he was so anxious when he saw Lin Xiaochu being taken away. Although the boy liked Lin Xiaochu, he knew that he wasn't capable enough. In addition, he saw Yun Jian's skills just now, so he ran up to block Yun Jian.
Tianyu, this matter has nothing to do with her.
It's already very good of her to deal with the criminals in the house for us. We'll go save Xiaochu ourselves.
Hu Chirui frowned.
Although he didn't know how to save Lin Xiaochu and Eliza, he didn't even know where the criminals had taken them. However, Hu Chirui could tell that Yun Jian didn't want to care about this matter anymore. After all, to Yun Jian, they were just passers-by on her journey. They were just fellow villagers from the same country. There was no need for her to take risks for them. This was normal. Although Hu Chirui didn't like Lin Xiaochu came with them. Of course, he couldn't just leave after Lin Xiaochu was taken away and her whereabouts were unknown. They definitely had to save her.
Hu Chirui, are you crazy? Didn't you see how powerful those criminals were?
They even had guns on them. If we go save her ourselves, aren't you asking us to jump into a fire pit? Although Duan Tianyu liked Lin Xiaochu, he cherished his own life more. Therefore he yelled at Hu Chirui. After yelling, Duan Tianyu turned around to look at Yun Jian. You killed so many criminals just now. Since you have the ability, why don't you go save her? Duan Tianyu said this as if it was only natural. After hearing Duan Tianyu's words, Yun Jian's lips curved into a smile. It was a mocking smile. After laughing, Yun Jian stopped smiling and asked in return, I do have the ability to save her, but why should I? This matter had nothing to do with her. Yun Jian was not a good person. Even Eliza, who she got along well with, had been taken away. She, Yun Jian, would not save them. Yun Jian wouldn't take the risk if it didn't bring her any benefits. Yun Jian was not to be blamed for being ruthless. In her world, or rather as a secret agent, she was not to be blamed for being ruthless. Leaving him in the lurch was just to protect himself. Who knew if today's incident was a trap or not? She, Yun Jian, would never do anything that did not benefit her. Duan Tianyu was stunned by Yun Jian's words, but because he was worried about Lin Xiaochu's safety, he was only stunned for a moment before he continued to shamelessly say to Yun Jian, That's because we're all Z citizens. Now that your fellow countrymen are in trouble, you clearly have the ability to save them, yet you refuse to save them. How can there be someone like you in this world? Duan Tianyu insisted that the unreasonable words were reasonable. Yun Jian chuckled and retorted, imitating Duan Tianyu's words. How can there be someone as shameless as you in this world? After saying this, Yun Jian paused. Then, with a flip of her hand, the butterfly knife that she had just retrieved from the criminal's corpse appeared in her hand. Yun Jian held the butterfly knife in her hand and swung it skillfully. Then, she pointed the blade at Duan Tianyu. She was arrogant, but she had the ability to do so. She said arrogantly, Looks like you're planning to die under my knife. Then I won't hold back. As Yun Jian spoke, just as she was about to swing the knife, Duan Tianyu was so scared that he rolled away from the side. He was still shouting with all his might, as if he was recalling the scene of Yun Jian killing someone.
Chapter 1152.
Yun Jian glanced at him coldly. She saw Duan Tianyu roll to the side like a pug after seeing the butterfly knife in her hand. She couldn't help but smile coldly and plan to head upstairs. Just as she was about to head upstairs, she heard the sound of two people kneeling on the ground behind her. Yun Jian lowered her eyes and narrowed them slightly. She turned around and saw the owners of this hotel, who were Eliza's parents, kneeling in front of her. Eliza's father was called Satana, and her mother was called Yule. Eliza's parents were good citizens who knew their place in Country A. At this moment, they were kneeling in front of Yun Jian without a care for their image.
Yun Jian raised her eyebrows.
In the next second, Eliza's father, Satana, kowtowed heavily in the direction of Yun Jian in the middle of the stairs. At the same time, Satana's voice rang out, but he spoke in Country A's language. Hu Chirue and the rest couldn't understand him at all. Eliza is my wife and I's only daughter. She is our life. Young lady, I know you're capable, but I don't want to interfere in this matter. My wife and I are already old. We can't lose our daughter. So I would like to implore you to save our daughter. I know this request is rude. I can also tell that you're used to using that butterfly knife. If you can agree to our request, I'll give you our family heirloom. Our family heirloom is a dagger. It's extremely sharp. The person who owns it can use it to cut anything. If you use its blade to cut a piece of iron, you can cut it into pieces as easily as cutting tofu. As long as you agree to save our daughter, I can transform it into a butterfly knife and give it to you. Satana's words were very sincere. Unlike Duan Tianyu, Duan Tianyu's tone when he spoke to Yun Jian was completely commanding Yun Jian. However, Satana knelt in front of Yun Jian and used his family heirloom to exchange with Yun Jian. After hearing Satana's words, Yun Jian's heart was moved. As an assassin or a special agent, it was undoubtedly very attractive to have a legendary artifact in their hands. Yun Jian had only heard of the kind of knife that Satana was talking about. According to the current level of science, it was still impossible to figure out how to make a knife so sharp. However, there were people who had excavated this kind of incomparably sharp knife from ancient ruins. Legend had it that this knife could easily cut through iron like tofu. It was just that Yun Jian didn't expect Satana's house to have it. Previously, Satana had not mentioned the family heirloom because he was afraid that someone would steal his family's saber. However, he had no other choice now. Eliza was his only daughter. If he allowed Eliza to be taken away like this, he didn't know if she would be sent back. He would rather give his family heirloom to the girl in front of him. Even before he made this decision, Satana felt that the power of his family's heirloom dagger was very compatible with the imposing young lady in front of him. What nonsense is this damned old man from Country A talking about? Does he think that just because he knelt down and begged her, she would go and save him? Just now, I asked her to save little Chu, but she refused. This old man from Country A wants her to save him? TSK, dream on. Duan Tianyu couldn't shout for Yun Jian, and he didn't understand Country A's language. However, he could sense that Satana was kneeling in front of Yun Jian to ask Yun Jian to save him. Hu Chirue and the others also thought that Yun Jian wouldn't help. Chapter 1153. Satana actually knew a little Chinese, but it wasn't a coincidence that he purposely used Country A's language to speak to Yun Jian. It was because he didn't want Hu Chirue, Duan Tianyu, Ningxia, and the others to know that his family had a family heirloom. In fact, Satana was the smartest one among the people present. He knew how to capture Yun Jian's heart and use what Yun Jian wanted to exchange for conditions with her. Duan Tianyu, on this level, was the type of person who was mentally retarded. He clearly knew Lin Xiaochu's attitude towards Yun Jian, but he still used a threatening tone to force Yun Jian to save Yun Jian. No matter who it was, they would never agree to save Duan Tianyu. At this moment, Duan Tianyu, who had originally vowed that Yun Jian would definitely not agree to save his daughter from Country A, actually heard her agree. Duan Tianyu and the others couldn't help but be shocked and didn't react for a long time. Adam, Lan Su, you guys stay here. I'll be back soon. Yun Jian didn't look at Adam and Lan Su, who were standing on the second floor. She spoke, and her words were obviously directed at Adam and Lan Su. Okay. Adam responded on behalf of Lan Su. Then he took Lan Su's hand and walked towards the room. At this moment, Yun Jian had already turned around and walked downstairs. Do you have a car? Yun Jian looked at Satana and asked when she came to the first floor. As soon as Yun Jian finished asking, Duan Tianyu reacted. Yun Jian actually agreed to save the daughter of Country A's old man. What do you mean? You won't save your own countryman, but you actually agreed to save this foreigner's daughter? Duan Tianyu asked Yun Jian in a questioning tone. As soon as Duan Tianyu finished his questioning tone, Yun Jian cast a sidelong glance at him and said mercilessly, he promised to give me 1 million yuan and work like a horse for the rest of his life to repay the debt. Are you going to give it to me? If you work like a horse for me, I'll also save people for you. Yun Jian never made a draft when she lied. Satana could understand a little Chinese. He understood that Yun Jian knew that he didn't want to expose the family heirloom, so Satana looked at Yun Jian gratefully.
You're asking for too much. 1 million yuan, you're asking for it. I think you've lost your mind thinking about money. Duan Tianyu bellowed at Yun Jian, his face draining of color when he heard her. Yun Jian ignored him and walked past Duan Tianyu. Satana looked at Yun Jian's Yun Jian and Lan Su's Yun Jian's Yun was Yun Jian. Yun Yun's Yun's, Shi Tianyot Hu Chirui said to the other guy. When he was about to chase after Yun Jian, he suddenly stopped. After hesitating for 2 seconds, Hu Chirui turned around and looked at Ningxia, who was standing not far away. Hu Chirui's gaze softened when he looked at Ningxia. He said to Ningxia, "Stay here and don't run around. We'll be back soon." Ningxia knew that she would only cause trouble if she went, so she nodded. At this moment, Hu Chirui and the other guy were already walking out the door. Duan Tianyu saw that Hu Chirui was ignoring him and leaving. He snorted and followed him out. At this moment, Yun Jian and the others were standing at the entrance. Yun Jian ignored Duan Tianyu and the others who came out with her. Her goal was only to save Eliza. As for what happened to Lin Xiaochu, it was none of her business. Chapter 1154. Shut up. As soon as Duan Tianyu finished speaking, Yun Jian's crisp voice rang out. Duan Tianyu was frightened by Yun Jian's crisp voice. He shuddered violently and then trembled. He wanted to insult Yun Jian back, but in the end, he opened his mouth and only said, "Ha, at such a young age, you really think you're a god? You didn't come out in time to save him just now, and now look at you? Now we don't even know where he is. Can you find him?" At the end of the day, Duan Tianyu was still blaming Yun Jian for not doing anything when she could have stopped the thugs and saved them just now. "If you say another word of nonsense, I'll kill you right now." Yun Jian raised her leg and kicked Duan Tianyu's chest fiercely, sending him flying several meters away. Duan Tianyu was suddenly sent flying, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The intense pain made Duan Tianyu roll on the ground a few times. In the end, he stood up reluctantly, but he really didn't dare to say another word. He originally thought that Yun Jian wouldn't dare to do anything to him, but he didn't expect that she would actually dare to do something to him. Duan Tianyu could even feel Yun Jian's murderous intent towards him just now. He couldn't help but shiver slightly. At this moment, Satana also walked out of his garage. He looked at Yun Jian and said to Yun Jian, "My tractor broke down and it can't drive anymore." After hearing Satana's words, Yun Jian lowered her eyes. Because it was already a moonlit night, the bright and beautiful moonlight still faintly shone down, brightly illuminating the sand on the ground. Yun Jian could clearly see the tracks on the sand. "Then we'll walk," Yun Jian said to Satana. As she spoke, her eyes were fixed on the sand from beginning to end. There were almost no cement roads in Country A because there were many deserts in Country A, so the most common road here was sand. Yun Jian looked at the sand on the ground, then she pointed in a direction and said to everyone, "Let's go this way." "Why did you go that way? What if you went the wrong way?" Duan Tianyu had just been beaten up and learned his lesson. Just as he was about to continue speaking, he suddenly remembered how he had been beaten up by Yun Jian. Duan Tianyu shuddered and shut his mouth. There are traces of the car's tires running over the sand. If we follow the trail, we'll definitely be able to find it. Hu Chirui was obviously smarter than Duan Tianyu. He quickly explained. As they spoke, the group of people had already run over there. That group of people is now in Hassa village. "They won't go far," Yun Jian, who was walking in front, suddenly said. They didn't know where Yun Jian's confidence came from, so the group of people was stunned. In spite of it, considering Yun Jian's astounding skills earlier, everyone followed her without hesitation. At this moment, under a dilapidated thatched hut in Hassa village, Eliza and Lin Xiaochu were tied to a bench by their deputies. Eliza appeared to be very calm, but Lin Xiaochu was crying the entire time. "I beg you, please let me go. As long as you let me go, I promise I won't call the police. Why don't you just arrest her? I promise I won't tell anyone." Lin Xiaochu kept shouting desperately. The "her" in this sentence was referring to Eliza. Lin Xiaochu liked to sleep naked, so at this moment, she was wearing only a bra and underwear. Her white thighs made the group of criminals jealous. Chapter 1155.
As soon as the gangster finished speaking, 5 or 6 gangsters had already unbuckled their belts and walked towards Lin Xiaochu. The gangster who was touching Lin Xiaochu's thigh tore off Lin Xiaochu's underwear, directly exposing Lin Xiaochu's embarrassing private part. Ah! Get lost! You disgusting country A people! Get lost! Lin Xiaochu began to howl. She was so shocked that she forgot that these gangsters could speak Chinese. Motherf asterisk cur. You want to do this the hard way. The gangster slapped Lin Xiaochu's face, immediately causing her face to swell. At this time, one of the gangsters who had unbuckled his belt had already come forward and pulled off Lin Xiaochu's bra. Ah! Ah! In the end, only Lin Xiaochu's endless screams were left. It was still very late at night. Near the thatched hut, Yun Jian and the others followed the tire tracks and found this place. It's that van. Hu Chirui pointed at the van beside the thatched hut. Let's not alert them. As soon as Hu Chirui finished speaking, Yun Jian did not have any intention of hiding her whereabouts and walked in that direction. F***CK. She's crazy. I told you not to alert them. Duan Tianyu saw that Yun Jian did not listen to Hu Chirui, and he could not control his mouth, so he immediately shouted. Shoo, follow her. Hu Chirui reacted quickly. He saw Yun Jian walking forward and knew that Yun Jian must have her reasons, so he did not say anything and followed her. On the other side, Yun Jian had already arrived in front of the thatched hut. The door of the thatched hut was only covered by a piece of old wooden board. Standing outside the hut, they could hear Lin Xiaochu's low moans from inside the hut. The candles in the hut flickered. When Yun Jian heard the sound, she knew what was going on inside the hut. She lifted her leg and kicked open the old wooden door. As soon as she entered, Yun Jian saw a group of gangsters in front of her wearing only a pair of shorts that covered their lower bodies. They stood by the side and watched with satisfaction as a gangster pounced on Lin Xiaochu's body. Little Chu Lin had been screaming at the beginning, but now she was actually enjoying it a little. When Yun Jian kicked open the wooden door, she was shocked to see the gangsters inside. This group of gangsters did not expect Yun Jian to find this place. When they saw Yun Jian, this group of gangsters quickly retreated to a corner. They did not forget how Yun Jian had killed people before. As soon as the thug on Lin Xiaochu's body retreated, Lin Xiaochu didn't even have a piece of cloth to cover her private parts. Hu Chirui and Duan Tianyu, who had followed closely behind, also saw this scene. Hu Chirui caught a glimpse of this scene from the corner of his eye. He quickly turned and left. Xiaochu! When Duan Tianyu saw this scene, he roared. However, because he was afraid of this group of gangsters, he did not rush forward. Yun Jian pretended not to see anything. She walked straight to Eliza and untied the rope that bound Eliza. Aside from the fact that she had watched a free reality show, Eliza wasn't injured at all. Even when Yun Jian walked out of the thatched hut with Eliza, that group of gangsters did not dare to make a sound. Because they thought that Duan Tianyu was with Yun Jian, this group of gangsters saw that Duan Tianyu had untied Lin Xiaochu and did not make a move. Yun Jian had just walked out of the thatched hut with Eliza when suddenly, the sound of a black Lamborghini came from afar. Finally, the car braked and stopped on the spot. One of the two figures who got out of the car made Yun Jian smile slightly. Country A was a poor country. Hassa village was already considered a big village. A family like Satana's was one of the best in the village. If they could own a tractor, they would be considered rich. Eliza and Satana were stunned by the sudden appearance of this black Lamborghini. Hu Chirui and the others had also never seen such a high-end sports car. They were stunned. Chapter 1156. Satana heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that his daughter was safe and sound. Then, he was dazzled by the Lamborghini sports car in front of him. Hassa village was poor, so Satana, who owned a tractor at home, became the richest person in the village. Therefore, when this dazzling black Lamborghini sports car sped over, it simply blinded Satana and Eliza's eyes. Although Hu Chirui and the others were not as exaggerated, they had also never seen such a high-end supercar. They had only seen it in the newspapers before, but they did not expect to see it here. They were immediately dumbfounded and could not help but take a few more glances. As for Duan Tianyu, he was still roaring in the thatched hut. His beloved woman was being sullied by this group of ruffians one after another. His heart was bleeding. After Satana, Eliza, Hu Chirui, and the other saw the two tall men getting out of the dazzling Lamborghini sports car. One of them walked over. One of them went to Yun Jian while the other followed closely behind the younger and more handsome man.
There's no signal here. How did you find this place?
After Yun Jian saw Ce, she walked over without waiting for Ce to come up to her. Then, she took the initiative to stand in front of Ce and asked in a soft voice. When Ce saw Yun Jian sticking to him, he smiled and pulled Yun Jian into his arms in front of Satana and the others. His originally sharp black eyes instantly restrained, like a wild falcon suddenly seeing something it liked. In the blink of an eye, he restrained his sharpness and revealed his most gentle expression. Seeing this scene, the few people who were standing in the distance were obviously shocked by Ce's mysterious and strong aura. When they saw Ce's gentleness toward Yun Jian, they were a little stunned. He gave off the feeling that he was an innate powerhouse. The people present could only watch from afar and could not get close. But when he faced Yun Jian, that kind of aura was instantly restrained. It was as if he was holding a beloved treasure. Even the gaze he looked at Yun Jian with was full of doting. Ce unconsciously held Yun Jian's small hand, then said to Yun Jian in the most gentle tone, "Before you guys came, Adam sent me the location. I found Adam and he told me what happened just now." Obviously, Ce had followed the tire tracks of the van to find them. Yun Jian nodded lightly. At this moment, Ce had already pulled her into his arms.
Emosen, kill everyone here.
When Ce raised his head, his gaze shifted from Yun Jian to Satana and the others in front of. His eyes suddenly, he looked at Satana and Hu Chirue as if he was looking at a dead man.
Was this man crazy?
Satana and Hu Chirue thought that since Ce was with Yun Jian, he was one of them. They did not expect Ce to say such a thing.
Kill everyone here?
Don't kill them. Kill the group of criminals in the house. Yun Jian grabbed Ce's ice-cold hand and said. Yun Jian had come here to obtain the legendary sharp knife that could cut through steel like tofu. If Satana died, she would not even know where the knife was hidden. Since it was Satana's family heirloom, it must be hidden in a very secretive place. Don't blame Yun Jian for being greedy. Yun Jian had indeed stopped Ce because of that knife. I'll listen to you. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Ce said gently to Yun Jian. Then he reached out and gestured to Emosen behind him. Emosen saw this and walked into the straw hut. At this moment, Lin Xiaochu, who had already put on her clothes, staggered out of the straw hut. Because Lin Xiaochu was covered in the smell of criminals, Duan Tianyu did not want to help her up. Not long after, the screams of the criminals begging for mercy could be heard from the hut, as well as the sound of blood splattering everywhere. Satana and the others stood in place with pale faces. Chapter 1157. Because they were suppressed by Ce's aura, no one present dared to utter a single word. After Emosen killed the group of thugs in the house, he walked out. Similarly, he didn't utter a single word, but he gave everyone present a bone-chilling feeling. At this moment, Emosen directly walked in front of Ce and expressionlessly said to Ce, "Young master, they've all been silenced." After saying this, Emosen threw the blood-stained knife in his hand onto the ground with a paw sound. This action caused everyone present to tremble and jump in fright. It felt as if killing the group of thugs in the house, killing a group of living people was a very ordinary thing. Ce indifferently replied. Then, he grabbed Yun Jian's small hand and walked towards the Lamborghini sports car. "Take care of the scene." Ce left these 5 short words. He tugged Yun Jian toward the Lamborghini. They were halfway there when Lin Xiaochu's fearless voice came from behind them. "What the hell? She clearly could have saved me. Why didn't she save me just now? It's her. It's all her fault that I was." Lin Xiaochu pointed at Yun Jian's back and screamed. At this moment, her feelings were extremely complicated. Lin Xiaochu had a boyfriend before, so she wasn't a virgin anymore. However, she was gang-raped in front of so many people. Furthermore, she was seen by her most beloved senior Rue. How was she going to face others? All of this was Yun Jian's fault. She clearly had the ability, but she didn't save her. Lin Xiaochu didn't care that Ce had ordered Emosen to kill the thugs in the house. It could be said that she didn't even notice that Emosen had killed the thugs. Right now, Lin Xiaochu's mind was filled with thoughts of taking revenge on Yun Jian. Lin Xiaochu was only halfway through her screams when Duan Tianyu rushed forward and covered her mouth. Just now, Ce wanted to kill them. If Yun Jian had not stopped them from the start, they would have been killed by now. Although Duan Tianyu didn't want to touch Lin Xiaochu, who had been gang-raped by the gangsters, he was more afraid of death. Therefore, he immediately rushed forward and covered Lin Xiaochu's mouth to prevent her from saying anything that would provoke Ce. Ce paused for a moment before he grabbed Yun Jian's hand and returned to the car. They then drove back to the hotel. Seeing that Ce had come over in the middle of the night, Adam had a reason to take Lan Su to his room.
Lan Su didn't refuse this time.
Mo Sen slept alone in a room. The next day, Yun Jian and the others were ready to set off for the entrance of the tomb. The next day, when Satana woke up and was about to leave, he kept his promise. He made the dagger which he had spent the whole night making into a butterfly knife and handed it to Yun Jian. In order to make the dagger into a butterfly knife, Satana didn't sleep for the whole night.
It could be seen that he was really grateful to Yun Jian. "Thank you." Seeing this, Yun Jian also thanked him and took the butterfly knife.
"I hope you can treat our family's heirloom well."
This was Satana's only hope. He solemnly told Yun Jian. "Okay." Yun Jian nodded.
After that, Yun Jian and the others set off for the tomb. On the way, Yun Jian disguised Ce, Adam, Lan Su, Mo Sen, and herself. Not only did the raccoon know how to disguise himself, but she also knew how to do it. With her original appearance, the 5 of them were too outstanding. Therefore, she disguised the 5 of them, including herself, into very ordinary-looking young people. The tomb wasn't far from Hassa village. Just as they approached the only entrance of the tomb, which was a dry well, they saw that there were tents set up all around them. The car was still moving forward, but after a while, it was stopped by a middle-aged man.
Chapter 1158. The entrance is blocked?
Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and asked. Yun Jian and the rest had disguised themselves as ordinary people. Their appearances were very ordinary, except for their slim figures. Yun Jian had disguised herself as a young girl with freckles. Her appearance was very ordinary, the kind that people would not be able to remember even if they looked at her 100 times in a crowd. However, her sharpness did not diminish at all. "Yes." The middle-aged man stopped Yun Jian and the rest out of kindness and spoke to them politely. After a pause, the middle-aged man introduced himself and then explained in detail. "My name is Lu Guodong, and I'm an archaeologist. Half a year ago, I heard from the people who went into the tomb that there were no more treasures down there. So many people came out. Oh right, I believe you've heard of the rumor that the tomb only allowed people to enter but not leave." Later, the rumor was dispelled by a young girl, and that young girl brought everyone out of the tomb. Only a small number of people were still unwilling to come out. But I heard that there were no treasures down there. About 2 months ago, someone found a jade pendant down there, and said that it was an ancient relic. So everyone came here to look for treasures again. It's a pity that they didn't find anything. Who would have thought that there would be a flood 3 days ago, and the huge rocks on the mountain collapsed and blocked the dry well at the entrance of the tomb? The people down there can't come up, and we can't go down either. But don't worry, the excavating engineers said that they can reopen the entrance in 10 days. Haha. The middle-aged man, who was the archaeologist named Lu Guodong, was obviously a warm-hearted person. So even if Yun Jian and the rest did not ask, he still told Yun Jian and the rest in detail. What Lu Guodong did not know was that it was Yun Jian who had cracked the rumor of only entering but not exiting the tomb that he was talking about and brought the people out. When Yun Jian first came out of Yulong mainland, the people who were waiting for the stone door to open in the Xanadu, which was as big as a sports field in the tomb, saw that there were no treasures inside and followed Yun Jian out. Everyone thought that they had waited in vain. Only a small number of people remained in the distance. In the end, 2 months ago, someone found a jade pendant. That jade pendant was an ancient relic and was quite valuable. Therefore, people from all over the world who had lost interest in exploring the tomb once again flocked to the tomb. However, an accident 3 days ago had blocked the entrance to the tomb, which was the dry well. That was why Lu Guodong and the others pitched their tents near the dry well and waited for the engineers to open the entrance before swarming down. Yun Jian understood Lu Guodong's words. Since the entrance was blocked, They really couldn't go down. Under Lu Guodong's kind guidance, Yun Jian and the others also set up their tents. Lu Guodong was a very warm-hearted person. When it was time for dinner, Lu Guodong came over to invite Yun Jian and the others. Would you like to have lunch with us? We just set up a barbecue grill. Since fate has brought us together, let's have a meal together. Thank you. Lu Guodong was being kind, so Yun Jian thanked him. After that, Ce hugged Yun Jian and led the group to where Lu Guodong's friends were. In Lu Guodong's group, there were a few young people. Of course, there were also some who were the same age as him. There was a very ugly woman in her 20s who was dressed to the nines. When she heard Lu Guodong's introduction to Yun Jian and the others, she smiled and went up to Yun Jian. Hello, I'm Feng Xiaoqin. Let's be friends. As Feng Xiaoqin spoke, she thought to herself, finally, there's a girl who's uglier than me.
Chapter 1159. He, Xiaoqin, it's not easy. Finally, there's a girl who looks more attractive than you.
Ha ha ha. Sitting not far away from Feng Xiaoqin, a rather pretty woman wearing a pair of short jeans and dressed very fashionably said to Feng Xiaoqin in a strange tone. The girl who looked more attractive than Feng Xiaoqin was none other than Yun Jian. The word attractive was also a very indirect mockery that Yun Jian was uglier than Feng Xiaoqin. Yan, how can you say that about other girls? This will hurt other girls' self-esteem. Feng Xiaoqin almost shouted in joy when she heard the fashionably dressed woman's words. However, Feng Xiaoqin still had a smile on her face. Right, I still don't know your name, Feng Xiaoqin asked cheerfully as she went up to Yun Jian. Yun Jian only lowered her eyes slightly and did not answer. She was too lazy to respond. Feng Xiaoqin saw Yun Jian's attitude towards her and frowned very obviously. She was disgusted by Yun Jian's action of ignoring her for a while. However, when she thought that she had a lot of face standing in front of Yun Jian and could prove that she was not the ugliest in the group, she did not fuss about it. Lan Su's appearance was also very average, but compared to Yun Jian, she was slightly better. Therefore, Feng Xiaoqin and Lin Meiyan only targeted Yun Jian. The group gathered together and Lu Guodong brought a few stools for Yun Jian and the others. While they were talking, the good-looking woman called Yan looked at a tall and handsome man in the distance. As if she was afraid that the people around her could not hear her, she called out to the man, Brother Yan, you're so handsome.
1 yen gij. 1 yen gij. We're eating dinner. Do you want to come over and eat together?
The woman who was called Yan by Feng Xiaoqin was called Lin Meiyan. After Lin Meiyan called out to the man passing by, the man called when Yan walked over.
Ah, it's so lively. When Yan walked over and stood there, Lin Meiyan was different from Feng Xiaoqin.
Lin Meiyan herself was pretty, so when she said those words to Yun Jian just now, she wanted Yun Jian to pay attention to her. She wanted Yun Jian to pay attention to her and be mocked by her. However, Yun Jian did not pay attention to her, so Lin Meiyan felt that such an ugly girl actually dared to ignore her. She wanted to embarrass Yun Jian in her heart. When the man named 1 yen came over, Lin Meiyan glanced at Yun Jian smugly.
Yun Jian was baffled.
What was there for Lin Meiyan to be cocky about when this man named 1 yen walked over? Just as she thought, exclamations of exclamations came from all around them.
Wow, it's 1 yen.
Lin Meiyan is really capable. She made 1 yen walk over with just a shout.
Ha, isn't that so? Who is this guy?
He's the one who saw the girl who dispelled the rumor that the tomb only allowed people to leave and not enter.
Wow, is that true?
Did he really see the legendary girl who led everyone out of the tomb? The group's bragging attracted Yun Jian's attention.
Legendary girl?
Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, then realized that these people were talking about her. Back then, when Yun Jian led a group of people out of the tomb that only exited but did not enter, the rumors had spread to this extent. Even 1 yen, who had seen Yun Jian back then, was bragging about it now just because of this. If Yun Jian had not disguised herself, he would have recognized her at a glance. Yun Jian had just narrowed her eyes when she heard Lin Meiyan say, "Isn't that so?" Brother Wen Yen said that girl was very pretty. As she said that, Lin Meiyan even moved closer to Yun Jian and said in a mocking tone, "Little girl, I heard that the legendary girl is about the same age as you.
Hee, but she is as beautiful as a fairy." Chapter 1160.
Lin Meiyan felt that knowing Wen Yan was something to be proud of, because Wen Yan had seen the legendary girl.
Oh.
Yun Jian was a little impatient, so she casually replied to Lin Meiyan. Ce couldn't be bothered with Lin Meiyan, so he reached out and pulled Yun Jian into his embrace. Ce's appearance after his disguise was very ordinary. Although he was tall, he didn't attract any attention. Yun Jian had disguised the 5 of them, including herself, because she did not want them to stand out and attract unwanted attention. However, she didn't expect that they would still attract attention even though they had disguised themselves to be ugly. Lin Meiyan had only hooked up with Wen Yan not long ago. Because Wen Yan had seen the legendary girl, everyone here worshipped Wen Yan like a god, trying to get information about the legendary girl's deeds from Wen Yan. Because of this, Lin Meiyan used the fact that she knew Wen Yan as her pride. So when she saw Wen Yan earlier, she called him over because she wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian that she knew someone like Wen Yan. However, Lin Meiyan never expected that Yun Jian's reaction would be so calm. This made Lin Meiyan even more unhappy. She cussed in her heart. "You're so ugly, but you don't even give me the reaction I expected." Lin Meiyan became even angrier as she thought about it. She always wanted to teach Yun Jian a lesson. As she thought about it, Lin Meiyan saw Ce pull Yun Jian into his embrace, so she became suspicious. "Are you two boyfriend and girlfriend?" Lin Meiyan asked with a fake smile. "She's mine." When Ce heard Lin Meiyan's words, he didn't even raise his head. He lowered his eyes and looked at Yun Jian, declaring his sovereignty in a very domineering manner. If it was in the past, when such a handsome man like Ce said such things to Yun Jian, the surrounding people would be extremely envious. But it was different this time. This time, Ce had an ordinary face. Just like Yun Jian's ugly face, she couldn't be remembered in a crowd. "You two are really a good match. An ugly man with an ugly woman. There was really no one more compatible than you two." Lin Meiyan held back her sarcasm and said sarcastically. Yun Jian and Ce ignored her. Seeing this, Lin Meiyan felt even angrier. However, at this moment, Lin Meiyan's eyes suddenly flickered. She realized that Ce and Yun Jian were probably ignoring her because she was much prettier than them. Thinking of this, Lin Meiyan almost couldn't help but sigh at her own beauty. At this time, the food on the barbecue rack in front of him was also cooked. Lu Guodong distributed food to everyone fairly. After lunch, Lu Guodong brought a group of men to the entrance of the tomb, which was the dry well, to help. It would take a long time for the engineering team to move the rocks that blocked the dry well. Lu Guodong's group didn't have anything else to do. They just wanted to enter the tomb as soon as possible, so they brought the men to help. Ce saw this and brought Mo Sen and Adam over to check out the situation. Yun Jian and Lan Su didn't follow, while Yun Jian was sitting in the same place. Lin Meiyan was washing the pots and bowls that she had just used with a group of women. She saw that Yun Jian was leisurely and was angry. "Ugly people can be idle, but I'm so beautiful, but I have to work. Is there any justice in this world?" Lin Meiyan suddenly thought of an idea to mess with Yun Jian. She walked over to pour a cup of hot tea. Just as she was about to deliberately trip and spill the tea all over Yun Jian's body. Suddenly, a woman in the distance shouted in horror. "Ah! That's a wolf. God! How can there be a wolf here?" Chapter 1161. Although there were many tents set up here, it was not to the point of overflowing. Even from where they were, they could see a ferocious male wolf roaring as it gradually walked towards them. Its movements were extremely slow and gentle. "Ah! It's a wolf!" Lin Meiyan, who was still intoxicated by her beauty, shouted loudly. Then, her whole body trembled as she retreated step by step. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. The group of women around her began to retreat in fear. Some of them hurriedly hid in their tents and stood up from the bench. "Wolf! Wolf!" In a moment, the women present all screamed, their faces pale with fright. Coincidentally, the men had followed Lu Guodong to the well to help. Everyone wanted to enter the tomb as soon as possible. They were afraid that the treasures in the tomb would be snatched away by others. At the place where the tents were set up, there were only women left. "Ah! How could this be?" The men all went to help. "Why is there a wolf here?" Some of the women screamed and ran to where the men were, which was the dry well. At this moment, even Wen Yan, who was worshipped like a god, had already gone to the well to help. It could be said that there was not a single man left here. The women subconsciously felt that they were weaker than the men, so in this situation, they were all panicking as if there was no doubt that it was inevitable. It's going to, coming over. Lin Meiyan was so scared that she grabbed Feng Xiaoqin's clothes tightly. Her face was pale with fright. Run quickly. Run quickly, let's run to the well, they are all there. Some of the women began to shout, thinking that as long as they ran to where the men were, they would be safe. It's too late. Just as the women were about to lose themselves in panic and wanted to run to the men to seek protection, Yun Jian's indifferent and fearless voice rang out.
What do you mean it's too late? Do you want us all to die here? How can you be so vicious? Everyone run quickly.
Lin Meiyan thought. She suddenly pushed Feng Xiaoqin away and was about to lead the way to the dry well when Feng Xiaoqin stopped her.
Oh woo!
The male wolf howled. What followed was Yun Jian's curled smile, which was extremely strange. She slightly raised her lips and explained, wolves are pack animals.
Do you think there will only be one wolf?
Just as he finished speaking, dozens of wolves jumped out from the bushes and stared at the group of women in front of them. At the same time, they blocked the path from here to the well. Why are there so many wolves?
I don't want to die, sob sob sob.
A large group of women hugged each other tightly. They were so scared that they were wailing and trembling all over. Lin Meiyan was also scared out of her wits. The pack of wolves gradually approached, but at this moment, Yun Jian suddenly pulled out the sharp butterfly knife that she had just obtained from Satana from her trouser pocket. She curled her lips and sighed. Then she said to Lan Su, who was behind her without fear in the face of danger, "You came at the right time.
I also want to test the power of this knife."
Lan Su, do it."
Yes. Lan Su obeyed.
She flipped her hands and took out 2 darts from her trouser pockets.
Lan Su was used to using darts.
At this moment, Lan Su held the darts in her hands and used them as knives. You too want to." Lin Meiyan saw this scene. She was so scared that she screamed loudly. Could it be that the two of them wanted to use the weapon in their hands that looked like they had no chance of winning and fight with these dozens of wolves?
What kind of joke was this?
But at this moment, Lin Meiyan saw Yun Jian's red lips curl up. On that ordinary and freckled face, there was a frightening smile. In the next second, Yun Jian shouted and stepped forward with Lan Su.
Chapter 1162.
The moment Lin Meiyan spoke, Yun Jian and Lan Su had already rushed into the pack of wolves with knives in their hands.
In Country A, there were a lot of ungoverned bushes.
Of course, it was precisely because there was no one to govern them that there were a lot of wild animals. Like this pack of wild wolves, they were real carnivores, and at the same time they were also the rulers of the jungle. Dozens of wild wolves were eyeing the crowd covetously, and were already roaring with hunger. It was obvious that these dozens of wild wolves hadn't eaten for a long time. Hungry wild wolves could pounce on their prey without any regard for their lives when they saw them. Their fighting power was absolutely amazing.
And Yun Jian and Lan Su were just 2 weak women.
In Lin Meiyan's opinion, she felt that Yun Jian and Lan Su were so ugly, and they really thought that they had some heaven-defying ability. They're holding back the pack of wolves, let's run. Lin Meiyan's first thought was to run away. Because to Lin Meiyan, if Yun Jian and Lan Su dared to rush up, it meant that they were most likely dead.
Just right, this could also buy time for her to escape.
However, just as Lin Meiyan was about to turn around and run, she heard a woman's exclamation from the side. "Oh my God, she. From the corner of her eyes, she saw that none of the women around her turned around to run. Lin Meiyan suspiciously turned around, but she saw a scene that overturned her worldview. She saw that Yun Jian was leading the pack, and she rushed up to the 3 roaring wild wolves.
Oh woo!
The 3 leading wild wolves hadn't even reached Yun Jian yet. They saw Yun Jian's knife swinging from right to left at an extremely fast speed. The group of women present couldn't even see it clearly with their naked eyes. And the 3 wild wolves had already leaped towards Yun Jian, trying to pounce on Yun Jian and bite her ruthlessly. However, just as the 3 wolves were about to pounce on Yun Jian, their internal organs were slashed by Yun Jian's extremely sharp butterfly knife. The internal organs of the 3 wild wolves were cut open at the same time. Their skin and flesh were torn open. In the next second, The hearts of the 3 wild wolves hung out of their flesh and shattered at the same time. He died on the spot. There was not even the slightest bit of struggle. This was the power of the butterfly knife in Yunjian's hand, which was forged by Satana and belonged to his family heirloom. Yunjian curled her lips into a smile. With just a light stroke, the 3 wild wolves died in front of her. She curled her lips in satisfaction at the weapon she had just obtained. This smile carried a hint of wickedness. However, when the group of women in the distance saw this scene, their expressions were even more exaggerated than if they had seen a ghost. Lin Meiyan was so frightened that her entire body stiffened. She didn't dare to move anymore. The expression on her face was even uglier than if she had eaten dog shit. She actually killed 3 wild wolves. And her speed was so fast. Without much time to think, everyone saw Yunjian kick the 3 leading wild wolves away. The knife rose and fell. Wherever Yunjian passed, blood splattered. The seemingly ferocious wild wolves couldn't even get close to her before they were killed by her knife. At this moment, Yunjian was like a death god from hell, mercilessly executing lives one by one. Lin Meiyan and Feng Xiaoqin, who were standing in the distance, were so scared that they almost knelt on the ground. Was this still a teenage girl? She could actually deal with a pack of wolves. And she was unharmed. Even if an adult man saw such a pack of wolves, he would be scared witless. Later, when the men at the other end of the dry well heard the words of a woman who had rushed over to call for help, saying that the women here were blocked by the pack of wolves, they rushed back with their fastest speed only to see this scene.
Chapter 1163. Yunjian was currently stepping on the carcass of a wolf that had just died. She bent down and gently retrieved the butterfly knife that was inserted into the wolf's innards and even chopped the wolf's bones into pieces. Drawing a red arc, she was obviously satisfied with the blade's sharpness. As she pulled it out, she lifted her feet and stood on the ground. Lan Su had killed a few wolves as well, but he did not kill as many as Yunjian. He was not as intimidating as Yunjian just now. Lu Guodong, Wen Yan, and the others who had sprinted back from the old well sucked in a sharp breath. Yunjian's last action just now had hinted that she was the one who had killed the wolves. Am I seeing things? This little girl, she actually killed these dozens of wolves? Oh my god. Is this a joke? There are so many wolves. Even if we made it back in time, we'd have to fight to subdue them. But she and another little girl, these 2 little girls, had actually killed dozens of wild wolves. This was a joke. The people around them began to chatter, their faces draining of color as they spoke. As for the women, they were too frightened to utter a word. The wolves just now had given them too much of a shock. Ce, who had returned from the old well with Adam and Emo Sen, was obviously not worried that something would happen here. Dozens of wolves were ferocious, but to his Xiao Jian, they were completely harmless. Yunjian stood in the middle of a pack of wolf carcasses, surrounded by the fresh blood of the carcasses. Even an adult man with strong willpower would be so shocked by the gory scene that he felt nauseous. He might even be secretly afraid of seeing blood. Looking at Yunjian, however, the girl did not even feel the slightest fear from seeing so much blood and carcasses. It was as if killing so many animals was nothing more than an insignificant thing. In spite of it, no one, be it a man or a woman, dared to approach them. While everyone was still in a daze, a tall silhouette flashed in front of them. In the next second, Ce stepped on the carcasses and came to Yunjian. At the same time, he reached out to pull Yunjian into his embrace and murmured softly, "I won't go far from now on. Whether it's killing humans or wolves, I'll do it for you." As he spoke, Ce carefully held Yunjian's soft hand. His gentleness was a stark contrast to his aloofness when he treated others. Listening to Ce's alluring words, even the women standing far away were envious. If Ce did not look so average, he could probably drive all the women there crazy. At the moment, everyone's attention was on what Ce said. "Whether it's killing humans or wolves, I'll do it for you." Killing humans? These 2 words made everyone who reacted to the situation stunned in horror. He could actually say the words killing humans so casually. Pfft, don't flaunt your feelings if you're so ugly. How compatible. Both of them were so ugly, how compatible. After Lin Meiyan recovered from her fear, she saw that Yunjian and Ce were the center of attention. She was very envious and mocked them.
Just as she finished speaking, large droplets of rain suddenly fell from the sky. It's raining? Someone reached out to catch a large drop of rain and asked in surprise. At this moment, the rain gradually became heavier. At the same time, the rainwater washed the faces of Yunjian and Ce.
Chapter 1164. Just as Lu Guodong finished speaking, everyone's gazes turned towards Yunjian and Ce's group of 5. They didn't even care that they were still drenched in the rain when it started raining. They saw that Yunjian and Ce's faces were disfigured by the rain. After a while, everyone could feel that Yunjian, Ce, Lan Su, Adam, and Mo Sen's faces had a thick layer of skin peeled off.
Young madam, what's going on?
Adam reached out to wipe his face in front of everyone's astonishment, and a thick layer of skin peeled off. Adam naturally knew that he was in disguise. He only asked Yunjian why this thing would fall off. This thing isn't waterproof, Yunjian explained. When it started raining, she already knew that this disguise was going to be broken. The makeup she put on their faces wasn't waterproof, so they were naturally exposed when it rained. Yunjian's original intention wasn't to disguise herself. It was just to avoid attention. In the end, she didn't expect that even though her disguise was ugly, it still attracted attention. She felt helpless. What do you mean by what isn't waterproof? What are you saying, ugly? Lin Meiyan was getting more and more annoyed with Yunjian's words. She stood on the spot and didn't see Yunjian clearly. However, when she heard Yunjian's beautiful voice, she thought that the heavens had given Yunjian a beautiful voice, but didn't give her a beautiful face. How great would it be if she had such a beautiful voice? That way, she would become a beautiful woman with a beautiful voice. However, just as Lin Meiyan finished speaking, she saw Yunjian use the rain to wipe her face. Then, she revealed a face that was completely different from the one that was so ordinary that no one would be able to recognize her. This face was very delicate and pretty, exquisite to the extreme, small and beautiful. Moreover, this little face that had been washed by the heavy rain, although compared to those enchanting and charming beauties, this delicate and pretty little face did not have the slightest bit of charm. However, this delicate face was many times more beautiful and pleasing to the eye than those enchanting and charming faces. It could be said that at this very moment, Yunjian, whose disguise had been washed away by the heavy rain, was simply the highlight of the entire scene. In addition, Yunjian's figure was very slim. Previously, Lin Meiyan's heart was filled with jealousy. Yunjian was so ugly, but she had such a slim figure. In spite of it, Yunjian's ugliness comforted Lin Meiyan and Fang Xiaoqin. However, it was this sudden rain that made Yunjian's face change. The people standing around were all stunned. One by one, they stood in the rain in a daze. None of them thought of going into the tent to hide from the rain. Instead, they stared at Yunjian. Oh my God! Is she playing a face-changing magic trick? How did she become so beautiful? No, it's not just her. That man, and the other 2 men, that woman, their faces have all changed. Oh my God! Those 3 men are so handsome. Those 2 women are also beautiful. What's going on? Sounds of discussion came from the surroundings. Lin Meiyan and Fang Xiaoqin's faces instantly turned pale. They originally thought that they had found a girl who was uglier than them. But in the end, Fang Xiaoqin was obviously a little disappointed. Lin Meiyan, on the other hand, did not dare to believe it. Lin Meiyan even directly shouted, "No, this is impossible. She must have worn a mask to become so beautiful. She." Just as Lin Meiyan shouted these words, Wan Yan's voice covered Lin Meiyan's, and came out in horror. You are the legendary girl who brought everyone out of the tomb." Chapter 1165. If Lin Meiyan had suspected that Yunjian must have done something to make herself beautiful, then Wan Yan's words had completely destroyed Lin Meiyan's theory. Wan Yan was the most popular one because he had seen the girl who had dispelled the rumor of only entering but not leaving in the tomb. And now, under the rain, Yunjian and the other 4 revealed their original stunning appearances. But after revealing their original appearances, Lin Meiyan had said that Yunjian had become so beautiful because she wore a mask. The surrounding people were almost misled by Lin Meiyan's words. After all, could there really be such a beautiful girl in this world? Jian's beauty gave people the illusion that she shouldn't exist in this world. But Wan Yan's words directly refuted Lin Meiyan's words. And what attracted everyone's attention was when Yan actually said that Jian was that legendary girl? Heavens! How was this possible? Now that they knew that Jian was so beautiful, they once again found out that Jian was actually that legendary girl. Lin Meiyan's expression was worse than if she had eaten dog shit. Her face was tense and trembling, and the corners of her mouth were twitching. And what was even more shocking was that not only was Jian's appearance so outstanding, Ce, who was standing beside her, had removed his disguise and was now even more handsome than before. There was actually such a beautiful girl and such a handsome man in this world. At the beginning, Lin Meiyan had not only ruthlessly attacked Jian and Ce's appearance, she had even used the derogatory term, compatible, to describe them. Lin Meiyan had even bragged about that legendary girl in front of Jian, saying that the legendary girl was as beautiful as a fairy. What she meant was that she wanted to tell Jian that an ugly girl like her was an eyesore in this world. And now, when she found out that Jian was that legendary girl, Lin Meiyan felt as if she had been slapped to the ground by an invisible hand. The more arrogant Lin Meiyan was before, the more embarrassed her expression was now. As for Feng Xiaoqin, who had wanted to get close to Jian and make herself look prettier, she didn't look any better. What was different from everyone else's dumbfounded expression was that Ce, the center of attention, was getting close to Jian. At this moment, it was raining heavily. After the rain had blurred the makeup on their faces, Ce reached out and pulled Jian into his embrace. He held Jian completely in his arms and used his firm chest to shield her from the strong wind and heavy rain. "Don't get caught in the rain. Let's go into the tent," Ce said gently. Then, under the envy of the crowd, he held Jian's hand and walked towards the tent. Anyone who wasn't blind could tell how much Ce doted on her. He simply doted on her to the bone. Previously, Lin Meiyan felt that Ce's looks were very ordinary and didn't fit her taste. Therefore, she didn't feel envious of how much Ce doted on Jian. Instead, she used a mocking tone to criticize him. Now that they had seen Ce's face, even Lin Meiyan was envious of him, let alone the others. "Are the two of you really a couple?" Lin Meiyan wished she could become Jian and lie in Ce's arms. She gritted her teeth and blocked Ce from bringing Jian back to the tent. "Adam, throw her out." Ce suddenly raised his sharp eyes and looked at Lin Meiyan with murderous intent. Adam walked over and wanted to throw Lin Meiyan out without another word. "Do you still have any sense of reason? This is our territory." Lin Meiyan said this sentence with righteous indignation. Bang! As soon as Lin Meiyan finished speaking, Adam took out a desert eagle from his waist and fired a shot at Lin Meiyan's feet. Chapter 1166. After saying that, Adam didn't shoot Lin Meiyan's head. Instead, he held the gun and fired several shots at Lin Meiyan's feet. Bang! 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 Lin Meiyan was so scared that she turned around and ran. She didn't dare to have any other improper thoughts. "Next time you see her, just kill her," Ce said to Adam. Then, she held Jian's hand and walked into the tent. Hearing Ce's words, which treated human lives like grass, the people standing around all trembled. They were obviously shocked by Ce's words. Even after Ce and Jian entered the tent, the people around them were still unable to react for a long time. "Good shot. That woman deserved a lesson." At this moment, Lan Su walked to Adam's side. She had always maintained her cold appearance, but at this moment, she revealed a shy smile. Lan Su's smile almost melted Adam's heart. Adam was just about to put the Desert Eagle back into his waistcase when he heard Lan Su's words. He grabbed the gun again and wanted to look for Lin Meiyan again. "I'll just kill her in seconds." He had just threatened that woman, and Lan Su had taken the initiative to stand beside him and praise him. If he killed that woman, wouldn't Lan Su obediently throw herself into his arms? Just as Adam raised his gun, Sen held him down. Sen coughed a few times, paused, and then said, "Adam, young master and young madam haven't said anything yet. Don't be impulsive." Sen was Adam's biological brother, but he never called him brother. Normally, he even used strict requirements to reprimand Adam. But in fact, everything Sen did was for Adam's good. Lan Su saw the interaction between Sen and Adam,
and she couldn't help but laugh. A second later, Lan Su immediately restrained her smile. She pretended to be cold and walked towards a small stream. "I'm going out for a walk." After saying something to Emo-sen and Adam, Lan Su braved the rain and walked forward. "Where are you going?" "Rushing out without an umbrella." Adam frowned. Then, he went back to the car and took out a black umbrella. He followed Lan Su's footsteps. Emo-sen stood where he was and shook his head, laughing involuntarily. He knew that Adam's interest in Lan Su wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing, so he already treated Lan Su as his sister-in-law. 10 days wasn't a long time. Besides, Yunjian had CE. Every day, during breakfast and lunch, CE would hold her little hand and walk around. Although he would sometimes do some shameful things to her when there was no one around, Yunjian was secretly looking forward to it. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. The construction team was very diligent. Even though it was supposed to take 10 days, they really managed to remove the last piece of rock that covered the dry well on the afternoon of the 10th day. This also meant that they could enter the tomb. From the beginning to the end, Lu Guodong didn't look down on Yunjian and the others. When the dry well was opened, Lu Guodong ran over to tell Yunjian and the others. Everything was ready. Lu Guodong and the others planned to enter the tomb with Yunjian and the others. Yunjian didn't refuse. Just when Yunjian and the others were ready, Lu Guodong and the others were also ready. A woman's voice sounded, "Hey, it's you guys?" Yunjian turned around and saw that the people who appeared in front of her were Ning Xia, Hu Chirue, and the others who she met in Hasa village some time ago. Originally, Yunjian had a good impression of Ning Xia and Hu Chirue, but the premise was that they didn't go with Lin Xiaochu and Duan Tianyu. "Yeah." When she heard Ning Xia ask her, Yunjian still responded. Hu Chirue was very smart. He looked at Lu Guodong and asked, "Hello, we also want to enter the tomb. Can we go together?" Hu Chirue knew that Lin Xiaochu and Duan Tianyu had a dispute with Yunjian, so he could only ask Lu Guodong and the others. Only then could they peacefully enter the tomb together. "Sure. Let's go together. There's strength in numbers." Lu Guodong smiled politely. Yunjian naturally didn't care. After all, the final destination of the 5 of them was different from this group of people. Chapter 1167. Just as they arrived at the mouth of the well, Lin Xiaochu and Lin Meiyan were both shocked by the depth of the well that stretched from the mouth of the well to the bottom. "Ah, why is it so deep? Will I get hurt if I go down? What are we going to do if you fall and hurt yourself?" Lin Xiaochu took 2 steps back in fear. She wanted to go to Hu Chirue's side, but he dodged her. Lin Xiaochu gritted her teeth and turned to throw herself into Duan Tianyu's arms. If it was in the past, Duan Tianyu would definitely hug Lin Xiaochu immediately. But this time, Lin Xiaochu wanted to lean on Duan Tianyu in fear, but Duan Tianyu dodged her. Duan Tianyu only needed to look at Lin Xiaochu to remember the scene 10 days ago when the group of gangsters were all over her body. To Duan Tianyu, Lin Xiaochu was already dirty. No matter how much he liked her in the past, he had to keep his distance in the future. Lin Xiaochu, who clearly felt Duan Tianyu's actions, was filled with anger. So what if Yunjian was powerful and killed a lot of people? She could have saved her at that time. Even if Lin Xiaochu was with the group of gangsters that day. She had enjoyed it, but she had also embarrassed herself. Even Duan Tianyu, who used to crazily chase after her, had distanced himself from her. At this moment, Lin Xiaochu didn't care how powerful Yunjian was. She only wanted to teach Yunjian a lesson. It would be best if she let Yunjian experience the feeling of being gang-raped. "I'll go first." Yunjian saw this group of people dilly-dallying, but she couldn't be bothered to wait. She jumped into the well with Ce and the others without any hesitation. Yunjian was the legendary young girl. She had already entered the tomb, so she must be very familiar with the terrain below. Lu Guodong saw this and immediately shouted, "If you want to follow, then follow. If you don't want to, you can go back now." As he spoke, he also jumped down. Perhaps because Lu Guodong was older, he was more persuasive. So when Lu Guodong spoke, the voices of people like Lin Xiaochu who were complaining instantly disappeared. Yunjian had been here before, so she was naturally familiar with the terrain here. As for Wen Yan, although he had seen Yunjian before,
It was when Yun Jian brought everyone back from the tomb. He had never been to the tomb. At this time, Yun Jian had already easily led everyone to the mud hole that was as big as a basketball court. There were still a few people stationed here. It seemed like some of them were still waiting for the stone door to open. Lu Guodong and the others were surprised to see such a large mud cave. After all, none of them had entered the tomb, nor had they seen this paradise. At the front of the mud cave, the stone door and the cave beside it were still there. Legend had it that after waiting here for a year, the stone door would open, and behind the stone door would be another world. Unfortunately, some people had already waited for a year, but the stone door showed no signs of opening. At this moment, the only place they could pass through quickly without having to wait was this cave. However, the cave was riddled with traps. Even a fly would not be able to enter. When Yun Jian brought people out of the tomb, the legend of the cave and the stone door was no longer a secret. Yun Jian had just arrived when she turned to Lu Guodong and said, "Let's part ways here." When Lu Guodong heard this, he was confused. "Where are you going?" Back then, the legendary girl who had led the people out of the tomb had also passed through the stone cave with monstrous mechanisms. This matter had not been spread out. Lu Guodong and the others did not know. Yun Jian pursed her lips and smiled. She walked towards the cave with Ce and the others. When Lu Guodong saw this, he was shocked. "I heard that all the assassins on the International Assassin chart died in that cave. Could it be that you want to?" Just as Lu Guodong's words were shocking when Yen, who was in the know, said something that terrified everyone present. Chapter 1168. As soon as Wen Yen finished speaking, it was as if he wanted to introduce Yun Jian's abilities to everyone, so he spoke louder and with an exaggerated tone. "I heard that as long as a person walks into this cave, their heart will be pierced by thousands of arrows. If they can't avoid it, then these arrows will pierce through them on the spot, and their bodies won't even be found." Back then, countless international assassins and secret agents, as well as Long Xiao from all over the world, came here one after another, trying to pass through this cave, but none of them succeeded. And that girl and the other 3 men are the only people in the world who can pass through this cave. Towards the end, Wen Yan's expression was very intense, as if the legendary person who could pass through this cave was himself. "Brother Wen Yan, is this cave really that powerful?" A group of people were following closely behind Yun Jian's group of 5 towards the cave. Hearing Wen Yan's words, Lin Meiyan couldn't help but ask. From Lin Meiyan's tone, it was clear that she didn't really believe Wen Yan's words. Just based on this cave, could it really be that powerful? So many international bigwigs couldn't pass through it? Only Yun Jian's group could pass through? Although Yun Jian's skills were really shocking, Lin Meiyan didn't really believe that Yun Jian and those 3 men could pass through the cave that even other international bigwigs couldn't pass through. "Brother Wen Yan, what you're saying is probably just hearsay, right?" Lin Meiyan asked again. "It's hearsay, but I'm sure that it's all true." Wen Yan saw that Yun Jian's group of 5 were almost at the entrance of the cave, so he said even more firmly. "It's them. I heard that there were 4 people who entered the cave, but I didn't know who they were." Lu Guodong also came out to testify at this time. Just as they finished speaking, Lin Meiyan's eyes suddenly lit up. Then she led the group towards Yun Jian's group of 5 even faster. At the same time, Lin Meiyan shouted Yun Jian's name loudly. "Hey, Yun Jian!" When they were almost at the entrance of the cave, Yun Jian turned sideways and stopped, then slightly turned to look at the group behind her. Lin Meiyan had already called out to her. Lu Guodong was standing not far away. He smiled at Yun Jian's group and said, "Although I don't know why you have to pass through the cave again, I hope you have a safe journey." Lu Guodong's words were very sincere. Yun Jian also narrowed her eyes. During this period of time, Lu Guodong had been taking care of them as an elder. "We will." Before Yun Jian could speak, he reached out and hugged Yun Jian to his arm. "Hey, are you guys planning to pass through by yourselves? We're to go through to everyone's to pass through to us. At the very least, we came here together." Lin Meiyan spoke once more, forgetting the lesson she had learned not too long ago. When, as to say, this to be, to say, to Lin, to turn to walk, be. What a joke. If you don't know how to bring anyone, then what about that woman?
Since Brother Wen Yen said that only the 4 of you pass through this cave, if you don't bring her, how can that woman pass through?
Lin Meiyan seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. She pointed at Lan Su and spoke very confidently.
However, before Lin Meiyan finished speaking, there was a stranger who had been waiting here for the stone door to open for a long time. After looking around Lan Su for a long time, he finally looked at Lan Su and said, "You, aren't you the woman who came out of this cave a few months ago? We didn't see you enter the cave, and you were wearing ancient clothing. Could it be?"
Chapter 1169. This person had been standing here looking at Lan Su for a long time.
He felt that Lan Su's face was somewhat familiar.
Later on, he heard from Lin Meiyan that Lan Su definitely couldn't pass through the stone cave. She was with Yun Jian, so Yun Jian naturally wouldn't leave her behind. Just when Lin Meiyan said that Lan Su, how could that woman pass through? This person suddenly thought of something. A few months ago, there was a 16-year-old girl wearing a black plain dress who passed through the stone cave just like that. At that time, it caused a panic among the people who were still waiting for the stone door to open.
What did you say?
This woman, she came out from the stone cave?
Lin Meiyan and the others were all stunned.
They were all dumbfounded on the spot, and looked at Lan Su in disbelief. That person saw that Lin Meiyan and the others didn't believe him, so he opened his mouth and said, "This is absolutely true. I've been here for at least a year. Other than seeing these 4 people come out of the stone cave one after another, I haven't seen anyone else enter the stone cave. When she came out of the stone cave wearing a black dress, it scared the hell out of us."
Oh,
that's right. I remember now. It wasn't just her. There was also a man wearing a black robe who came out of the stone cave. And the most bizarre thing is that she and that man wearing a black robe have never entered the stone cave.
We've been here for so long, and we've never seen anyone who entered the stone cave and didn't come out.
It's as if they came from another world and came out of the stone cave. The man who stood up and spoke wore a pair of glasses. He looked refined, and wasn't young either. He was probably in his 40s. Thus, no one questioned what he said. But at this moment, other than shock, no one present could find any other expression. Originally, Yun Jian didn't have a good opinion of the man wearing glasses' words. After all, if Lan Su's identity was exposed, it wouldn't be good for them. It was only when the bespectacled man finished speaking that Yun Jian snapped back to reality.
A man wearing a black robe?
Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and asked.
Seeing such a beautiful girl like Yun Jian asking him, the man was silent for 2 seconds before nodding and saying, "Yes, I remember that man wearing a black robe."
Only his eyes were exposed. He was very strange and mysterious.
As the man wearing glasses spoke, he couldn't help but shake his head.
Clearly, he was lamenting. But obviously, this man's words successfully attracted Yun Jian's attention. He was dressed in a black robe, and he was a man from the Yulong mainland. Why was this person so similar to the mysterious person mentioned by the leader? Back then, after eliminating the Inferno Ring, he found out that the real murderer of his brother's predecessor was a mysterious person. Yun Jian had also tried to find that person. Even later, Yun Jian was assassinated. It was as if someone was manipulating everything behind the scenes. And connecting all the dots, the mysterious person's motive was the biggest. Not long ago, Yun Jian had learned from Hu Batian, whom she had killed, that the mysterious person who controlled the former Inferno Ring and had been pulling strings behind the scenes was from Yulong mainland. Today, she heard from the man wearing glasses that other than Lan Su, there was another man wearing a black robe who came out of the stone cave, which was Yulong mainland. Then, she was 90% sure that the mysterious person was the person the man wearing glasses was talking about. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.